It was about 3 years ago when I first heard the dulcet tones of Josh Groban serenade me with a tale of love and longing in 19th century Russia. I'm referring to Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812, which is an excellent musical, and it's one I'm going to be referencing a lot in this series. The musical is about 2 hours long, and it adapts War and Peace. Sorry, let me clarify. It adapts this much of War and Peace. War and Peace is a novel. Kind of. If we just look at the back of the book on the version I have, we get a quote from Leo Tolstoy himself telling us it is not a novel, even less is it a poem, and still less a historical chronicle. That's because War and Peace is all of these things. It's not really a poem. It's two of these things. War and Peace weaves together historical fiction about noble families in the early 1800s, retellings of actual historical events that happened in the Napoleonic Wars between France and Russia, and a lot of essays about history and historiography. Tolstoy didn't fight in the Napoleonic Wars. He was an adolescent at the time, but he did actually have some experience on the front lines of a war between Russia and France, that being the Crimean War. The Crimean War was, of course, fought over the peninsula of Crimea in modern-day Ukraine, the one that Russia's still fighting to reconquer. Tolstoy has a lot of thoughts on how history is interconnected and every single event in history leads into the next one, and a lot of cycles repeating themselves. I feel like he even would call this one on the nose. But that's the only thing that relates to modern-day conflicts. In fact, the Crimean War isn't all about Crimea. It actually sparked because of a dispute between, let me check my notes, Russia and France fighting over a small strip of land in the Middle East called fucking Palestine? Holy shit, can we let those people live in peace for like 10 minutes? All this is to say, there's a lot going on in War and Peace. So much so that at the most efficient translations word-wise, it is at 560,000, which is 70,000 words longer than the blank and blank big book that came out last year, Brandon Sanderson's Wind and Truth. And as much as I love War and Peace, I'm going to tell you now, it's not as much of a page-turner as that one. But in addition to being a big novel, it's also an important novel, and from what I've heard, a good novel. In fact, it is the greatest of all novels, according to Gary Saul Morson, whoever that is. Just kidding, I've taken a class with him, he's a genius, and he's like the go-to guy for Russian literature. Now, I have read War and Peace, and I don't know if I can say it's the greatest of all time, but I can tell you, it is fucking phenomenal. But I also imagine that when you see a book that looks like this, it might not be the first thing on your priority list. And if you've seen War and Peace before and you've thought, I don't know if I'm going to get around to that one, that's perfectly okay. No judgment from me. In fact, I'm happy you're here, because that means this video has a target audience. I liked this book, and I want more people to at least know about it and be familiar with it. But I figured talking to a camera for however many hours this is going to take was going to be boring if that was all I did. So it's got crust. It shouldn't have crust. Now, I don't know the rules on YouTube for this. I didn't bother to look it up, so in case it's a problem, the camera just cut. So for all you know, I poured all that out and replaced this with good old water. And for unrelated reasons, I also have a bottle of water that I'm also going to be drinking a lot of. Hydrate, kids. Hydrate, kids. That's the face and noises I make when I drink water. I really needed that. It took me like 20 minutes to film that first bit of the video because I was like, everything needs to sound exactly right. I need like 1 ounce of alcohol to make me be like, no, the point of the video is that it's unscripted and you just say what the fuck's on your mind. So we're getting into that part of the video now. Okay, War and Peace. There are 15 books in War and Peace, in addition to 2 epilogues. So if my plan is working correctly, there's going to be 17 videos total in this series. We're going to be covering a book per video. Also, if you're curious, I think I have the Aylmer mod translation. So if you are a War and Peace head who's curious what version I'm going with, that I think it's this. Book 1, 1805. That's the name of the book. That's what it says it's called. No, the book, yeah, the novel is War and Peace, that's true, but the book, it's book 1. So we start off in St. Petersburg. It's one of the 2 main Russia locations we're going to be visiting here and there. I'll get into the specifics of what all those locations are important for later on. We are currently starting with Anna Pavlovna and Prince Vasili Kuragin speaking to each other. Anna Pavlovna, she's not a super important character, but she's kind of like a socialite who's always in a bunch of different social circles trying to talk and get people to gossip and all those sorts of things. The topic of discussion here is that Napoleon is up to some shit. In 1805, he is asserting his dominance in France and really starting to take things over there. And Anna Pavlovna is confident that he is the Antichrist, and we need to take a stand against him. Prince Vasili is here visiting for Anna Pavlovna's party. He's actually the first guest who has arrived here. And the whole vibe from Prince Vasili is he will say whatever he has to in order to feel like he's on the right side of the conversation. You kind of get the feel that he doesn't have, like, a strong stance on anything. He will just say whatever he needs to say to keep people happy. He talks a big game about being on Anna's side for everything, but never actually, like, saying out loud anything specific about what he thinks about the issue. Anyways, Anna Pavlovna believes that Russia is basically the world's only hope to stop Napoleon, because a lot of other places like Prussia and Austria don't stand a chance of actually stopping him from conquering, which it seems like he's very keen on doing. It quickly becomes clear that Prince Vasili doesn't really fucking care. Prince Vasili has other things on his mind. Really, the only thing he cares about is that there's a cool secretary position that has opened up, and he's hoping that his son Anatole is going to be able to slip in there. He's kind of asking Anna Pavlovna, hey, do you think he's got a shot at that? Do you think maybe you could pull a couple strings for me here? Because it turns out Anna Pavlovna is also a favorite to the Empress, Maria Fedorovna. Yeah, Maria Fedorovna. There's actually 2 empresses in Russia at this time. There is the emperor's wife and mother. This is the mother we're talking about. And we can only hope that Anna Pavlovna is the favorite in the same way that Emma Stone was the favorite in the movie The Favorite. Did people remember that movie? I liked it. It was fun. Anyways, Anna Pavlovna kind of like brushes him off and then talks about how she doesn't really like Anatole that much. And Prince Vasili, Anatole's dad, is like, yeah, Anatole kind of sucks. In fact, Prince Vasili does not seem to like any of his children, and we will get into the reasons why later on. But Anna Pavlovna promises that she's going to talk to Lise Minen Bolkonsky. A lot of fancy names in this one. And see if she can pull some strings to at least get Anatole maybe married off to someone rich so that Vasili's family, the Karagins, will be put in a better state of mind. The person she has in mind is a Mary Bolkonsky, who is Lisa's sister-in-law. Vasili mentions that his family is going through money troubles. This marriage would be a very lucrative opportunity for the Karagins. And that's it. We're already done with chapter 1. We're making great progress. There's 28 chapters in book 1 alone. There's a lot of chapters in this thing. But they're mostly short, which actually makes the pacing of it nice. If you want to try to read this novel, you should try to read it. You can get through it. You can do it. But if you don't want to, that's what this video is for. I'm gonna get another drink. That's a good thing, right? I'll take a sip after every chapter for 28. That'll probably do me good. Fun little annotation thing, by the way. Anna Pavlovna calls Napoleon Bonaparte, which is a specific spelling and presumably pronunciation that is kind of making fun of the fact that he is actually lineage-wise Italian. He's not even French. Whenever you hear a character refer to him as Bonaparte, they're kind of poking fun at him. And there's also kind of implication that they don't take him very seriously. Anna Pavlovna, that's actually not true for. She does think that he's a really big deal, but she wants to kind of poke fun at him and try to take him down however she can. So it's kind of a passive-aggressive way of just pronouncing his name. On to chapter 2. Anna Pavlovna has a sickly aunt who she keeps making everyone greet. That's not that important, just a little setup for what this party is kind of looking like. But we do meet a couple of different people here. We've got Helene, which is Prince Vasili's daughter. Vasili has 3 children. Helene is one of them. Anatole is another one, and we're going to meet the third one in a second here. We also have Lise, who was mentioned a second ago. This is the friend that Anna Pavlovna is hoping to talk to. And she is the beautiful young bride of Andrew Bolkonsky, who has not showed up to the party yet, but he is expected. Lise is a little bit ditzy, but she's beautiful, she's charming. Everyone likes having her around. We also meet Pierre Bezukhov. Oh, no, sorry, he's not called that yet. Spoiler alert, he's just Pierre. Right? Is that all they call him? Yeah, sorry, Monsieur Pierre. Ooh, the French thing. I get to talk about the French thing. Oh, this is so exciting. Pierre, he's the illegitimate son of Count Bezukhov, who's a very rich count who is ailing currently. Pierre is an intellectual who's always excited to be involved, but he is very awkward. He's excited to engage in conversation, but he is quite bad at it, and pretty much every time he opens his mouth, he embarrasses himself in one way or another. But he doesn't even really realize that he's being embarrassed because he's that bad at reading social cues. I love him. It's also worth noting at this point that a lot of these characters are actually speaking in French, which is interesting because we know this book is going to be about a war between Russia and France. And there's something that has actually aged incredibly well about War and Peace. Catherine the Great, who's not the current empress in Russia when this book takes place, but was recently the empress, made it so that a lot of high society speaks in French because she just thought France was kind of cool. So, whenever you see people speak in French in this book, it's because they're trying to act really hoity-toity and fancy. And if you speak in Russian, then you're just, like, speaking normally, and you're not, like, trying to bullshit anybody. And I just love that it translates really well into today of, like, yeah, if a person speaks in French, but it's not their native tongue, I'm going to assume they're only speaking French because they're trying to act fancy, and it feels a little bit silly. That's not like the only context in which you would speak French, but you know, the fun like stereotype of French is the we are the France, we're so much better than everyone else with our art and everything. That's the same thing here. When Russians speak French, that's exactly what Tolstoy is trying to make you feel about those characters. You're supposed to roll your eyes that they think they're so much better than everybody else for speaking French. It's awesome. I love that has translated so well. That's also why Pierre is called Pierre, by the way, too. His name is probably officially Piotr, because that is the Russian way to say the name Peter, but he is called Pierre because having a French-sounding name is rather popular among higher classes. It could be his name is officially Pierre, but the reason he has a French name is because it was the style at the time. Anyways, Pierre is here. He's excited to talk to a lot of people. He's especially excited to talk to Abbe Morio, who is another person here who is known to be kind of an intellectual, a thinker type, and Pierre really wants to pick his brain about a couple of things. There's also a very funny moment where, like, the thing you're supposed to do when you show up at Anna Pavlovna's house is go say hi to the sickly aunt, and then go and engage in conversation with everybody else. Pierre doesn't know that, and does not engage in conversation with the sickly aunt, but instead starts trying to talk to Anna Pavlovna herself, who is trying to run the party, and so he kind of commits a double faux pas of essentially talking to the wrong person just because he's so excited to get started at this party. Anyways, that's it for chapter 2 already, so another sip of whatever this is, who knows? Alright, we also have the Vicomte Montmar. Montmar. This is a guy who has a little bit of insight into what's happening in France, and Anna Pavlovna is so excited to have him as a guest, she starts trying to gather people to come around and just listen to his story. We get a specific moment where Anna Pavlovna is talking to Helene Kuragin, again Vasili's daughter, and we just get a couple of paragraphs about how hot she is. This is literally an important aspect of the entire book, but she is here. She's smiling, she's listening to the story. It doesn't seem like she cares that much. There's a cool detail where she's listening to the story and she's not sure how to respond because she's not super tuned into what the story is about, so she's looking to Anna Pavlovna to see how she responds. And if Anna Pavlovna chuckles, then she chuckles. If Anna Pavlovna goes, then Helene will go, and she'll just kind of cater her response to what she feels like is the vibe. But she's not actually that invested in whatever's going on. Anyways, Montmar is talking about a Duke Anjou, I believe, who was recently assassinated by Napoleon, which was seen as like a very big, oh, he's not trying to do this like the legal, cool way, he's just full-on committing a coup. Anyways, he's telling that story. Prince Hippolyte is also here. Hippolyte, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name. He is the third Kuragin child. We haven't met Anatole yet officially, but he was the first one that got mentioned. I think actually there's a little bit of controversy if he's the oldest or youngest child, because I think it actually flips back and forth. It's one very slight inconsistency in the book. Anyways, he's here. He's not super important, but he is another person who's rather socially awkward and is not very good at reading the room very well. But the funny thing is, with Pierre, we're supposed to be like, aw, like awkward, affectionate. And with Hippolyte, we're supposed to read and be like, oh, he's awkward, derogatory. But then while all that is happening, Anna Pavlovna turns and sees there's another gaggle of people around a conversation. She goes, wait, I didn't schedule this into the party planner. That's not okay. She goes up and checks it out. Turns out Pierre and Abbe Morio, the guy I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, are getting into like a heated conversation. And Anna Pavlovna shuts that down real quick. There's a very funny quote. Both were talking and listening too eagerly and too naturally, which was why Anna Pavlovna disapproved. I love Anna Pavlovna. She's actually not a super important character, but she just wants everything to go just the way she wants at her parties, and I kind of respect that, honestly. But right as she manages to wrap up that conversation, we enter into our next chapter, which means I need to take a drink real quick. In walks our next major player, which is Andrew Bolkonsky. He is kind of a bummer. I like him, but he's not super fun to be around sometimes. We find out that he is planning on joining the war effort because there are rumors swelling that Russia is going to join the effort to fight against Napoleon. Seems like Bolkonsky has volunteered himself to serve, not necessarily on the front lines. He is a big enough name that he's probably going to be an officer, which means he's not always going to be like literally on the front lines shooting at soldiers, but he's going to be a very important figure in the war. And he is going to be nearish the front lines. He's still in danger. He's not sitting behind the scenes the entire time. Prince Andrew seems... I should have warned you. Some translations say Andre. This translation does say Prince Andrew. It says it a lot. And you know what? I'm going to keep doing it. The Brits have monopolized the title of Prince Andrew for too long, and they have not been using it well. The literature nerds are going to reclaim the term Prince Andrew. We're talking about War and Peace Prince Andrew. He's great. He's a bummer. He's depressed and sad, and he needs therapy, and he takes it out on other people because he doesn't get therapy. But we still love him. Lost my place. Prince Vasili and his daughter Helene start to head out. But before he can make it out, he gets sidelined by Anna Mikhailovna. This is a new character. Sorry, Anna Mikhailovna Drubetskoy, which is an important distinction because, as you may have noticed, Anna Pavlovna is another Anna. We've already met 2 Annas. If you watch the musical, you know from the opening song that everybody has 9 different names. What the musical doesn't warn you about is that some of these people have the fucking same name. So it can be really hard to tell some of these characters apart, and I really wish there was some kind of visual that would help. I have a visual. I'm going to introduce the visual now. I needed some sort of transition so that I could introduce the visual, and I've got it. I'm going to bring it out now. Whew, that fireball's hitting. Or water. You don't know if it's fireball or water. You can't tell. I'm out of breath. The stuff was right here, 3 feet away, but I had to go around the camera, grab it, come back, and I'm out of breath from that. So, if that doesn't deliver on the title of the video, I don't know what will. My version of the book claims there are 5 major families in War and Peace that we need to keep track of. I would argue there's 4, because one of them is truly not that important, but they are going to be on the fun little corkboard I got. So, I guess we'll start in the order that we met them. We have the Kuragins. We met Prince Vasili. He was one of the first characters we met. And his whole deal is that he wants money. His family is not doing well financially, and he is hoping that he can find some way of solving that. Either he wants Anatole to marry off to someone super rich, or at least get a very lucrative job. Both of which will prove difficult over the course of the novel. Spoiler alert. Kuragins. Kuragins. If you needed any more proof that this is what we're implying that it is, you're allowed to drink on YouTube, right? If you're not, then maybe this is still water. It's still up in the air. Kuragins. Who do we meet next? We met the Pierre. Pierre is the bastard son of Count Bezukov. So our next family that we needed to keep track of is the Bezukovs. And the Bolkonskis. We've already heard mention of Mary Bolkonsky, and we have met Andrew and Lise. So we will go ahead and add them to the board. And one more major family we will get to in just a couple minutes, but, well, no, I guess we have the 5th one. The 5th one is the Drubetskoys, who are, I really don't think that important, but the back of the book tells me that they're one of the 5 main families in War and Peace, so I guess we'll put them on the board. I am not in a state to be poking sharp objects into anything. But we're here now. Alright, so we got 4 families here, and then a mystery space up here. Who are those going to be? We'll find out in just a couple minutes. But for now, we've got Bezukovs up here, Bolkonskis over here, Druputskis down here, and Kuragins down here. Alright? Now let's start filling in this space so that it actually looks interesting, this fun little conspiracy board I've got. I bought this and the red string from the same location, and I really wanted the person who checked me out to ask me about whatever conspiracy theory I was doing, and she didn't. I felt sad. I was like, "What? There's no other time when I'm going to be doing this, so at least treat me like I'm crazy." I am crazy, but I want to prove that I'm not crazy for I don't know what I wanted out of that interaction, honestly. It's not her business. Actually, there's no reason for me to make my business her business. I don't know. I just thought it would be fun, but in hindsight, don't trouble public service retail people with your problems. Ah, shit, the book. So, it would be really cool if I just had a bunch of index cards to represent these people, but I had an idea that I was like, it would be cool if there was some theming involved, and the theming is cards. I hope you like this, because I think it's really cool. Aces essentially represent main characters, although there's one exception to that rule. The way I've organized it, I'm trying to organize it in a fairly logical way. But, let's go step by step. So, first off, Ace of Diamonds. This is going to be Prince Andrew Bolkonsky. I've made the Bolkonsky family the Diamonds because they're super rich. That's one of that's like an actual really important thing about the book, is that the Bolkonskys are rich. Where'd the Sharpie go? Here it is. I should probably put it in a pocket. Do I have a pocket? I've got pockets! The vest has I've never used a vest, the pockets of a vest before, because I've never needed to. But the vest has pockets. How else do I define Prince Andrew Bolkonsky besides depressed? Dutiful? Dutiful works. Dutiful works. He's gonna be dutiful. The funny thing about this novel is that it's 900 pages long, and some of the main characters, I'm like, I don't know how to describe this, but this should do. I hate to waste a good set of cards, but for the sake of the bit, I gotta do it. Yes, it stays. I was worried that the card would like. But no, if I put the thumbtack down tight enough, it stays. You don't fucking care. So we've got Prince Andrew. He is the ace of the Diamond family. In terms of numbers, the face cards it's fun to play around with them, but there's more characters than there are face cards. So generally, the higher the number, the more important the character is. So we're going to put Lise, Andrew's wife, as number 10. I forgot to mention this. Lisa's fully pregnant. That's like that. I should have mentioned that. She is here and she's chilling and she's married to Prince Andrew, and that is fine. Everyone's happy and great about that. Next up is the clubs, because a lot of the Kuragans like going to the club. That's literally the main reason why they're the clubs. Despite being a prince, Prince Vasili is going to go ahead and be the king of the Kuragans. I should also, I guess, note, I'm generally saying king. That generally means you're the head of the family. He always wants to. He will say whatever he has to be on people's good side. Mostly because he usually wants something out of them. So I think I'm going to say people pleaser and schemer. The schemer thing is going to be important in just a second here. By the way, for Lise, I had ditzy and charming. Those are the two character traits I think are worth noting. A lot of the characters in War and Peace, and including the female characters, are very fleshed out and thought out very well, but he's still a male writer from the 1800s. The female characters tend to get more of the short end of the stick. Is that a phrase? I don't fucking care anymore. I'm drunk enough. Drunk off of things I might have consumed off screen. You don't know, YouTube. Because I don't think being drunk could, on its own, I don't think being drunk would break any rules. There's a chance that drinking on screen breaks rules, which I will contemplate as I drink my maybe water. King and queen do not mean you are married, because we have Prince Vasili as the king of clubs. I'm putting Helene as the queen of clubs. She's the most important female member of the Kuragan clan. What's the fancy word for selfish? What's the hedonist? I got it. That's fun. Helene, hot hedonist. That's fun. I didn't even intend for that, but that's all the H's. That's fun. Spoilers for Helene's character. She's kind of a hedonist. We don't judge her for that. Tolstoy does want you to judge her for that. Hippolyte we will put as the 10 of clubs. He is not super important, but there's not too many Kuragans, so it's fine to keep him as a 10. Hippolyte is awkward and not in a fun way. It is really funny that we meet Pierre and Hippolyte very close to each other, and with Pierre we're supposed to be like, oh, he's good at heart, and for Hippolyte we're supposed to be like, what a fucker. We have heard tell of Anatole, but I'm not going to add him to the board yet. We'll wait until we actually meet him, which will be fairly soon. I'm also actually going to put Anna Pavlovna in the Kuragan camp, just because I only have so many cards. Not everyone is going to officially be a part of each one of these families. But if someone is associated closely with a family, I'm going to go ahead and put a card down for them. Anna Pavlovna is going to be a 5. That's several jumps down, and I actually don't have anyone for 6 through 9 in the Kuragan family. The reason I'm jumping all the way down to 5 is just because, 1, Anna Pavlovna is actually not that important to the book, and also, because she's not actually a Kuragan, I don't want her to be like on the same level of like 9 and 8 as like the actual members of the family. But pretty much every time we will check in with Anna Pavlovna, a Kuragan will be involved in some way, which is why I'm putting her with the clubs. Anna Pavlovna is a socialite, and she's a little snooty. Honestly, again, spoilers, I might remove Anna Pavlovna from the board if I run out of room, just because there are very big portions of the book where she's not going to be that important. But for now, she's the 5 of clubs. All right, that's it for the Kuragans for now. So next up, we will go into the... Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. I almost lost the ace of spades, which it's very funny considering what I'm about to say. The Bezukovs, I am making the spades. The main reason for this is because I feel like if a deck of cards were to have a main character, it would be the ace of spades. In a similar fashion, Pierre is who, if I had to name a main character, would be the main character of War and Peace. I would argue that War and Peace has 5 main characters and a main cast of, like, 12 or 15. In the same way that, like, Breaking Bad, I would say, has 1 or 2 main characters, but a main cast of, like, 6 or 7. If you held a gun to my head and asked me to name the main character of War and Peace, as I think pretty much all scholars would say, Pierre. But that would be doing a disservice to all of the other characters who I do think deserve to be called main characters of War and Peace. He's not, like, the protagonist at all times, and there's several portions of the book where he's barely relevant. But, still, if we're going to have one main character, we'll say that it's Pierre. Where'd the Sharpie go? I promised I was going to use my vest pocket, and I forgot about my promise to myself. Pierre is awkward, and we don't know this quite yet, but I'm going to go ahead and write it down and add to the board. He is aimless. He is looking for something in his life that is going to give him some sort of meaning, and that is pocket, vest, pocket, not forgetting this time. That is very important to his role in the book at large. And then we have the Drubetskoys, who, again, I don't think are really main characters, but this version of the book claims they are, so we'll go ahead and add them in. So we just met Anna Mikhailovna, which I haven't even told you anything about her yet, but this is what triggered... This was the plot relevant thing that triggered the cutscene of, now it's time to introduce the corkboard. So now I have to add her to the corkboard. Pocket, I almost forgot. Best pocket, I didn't forget this time. I should, like, clip it, yeah, so now you can see. Isn't that fun? We are putting the Drubetskoys as the Jokers. It helps there's only 2 of them, and they're not that important to the plot, and they're pretty much just kind of off doing their own thing, and they sometimes interfere in other people's business, but, like, they're not, like, interweaved with everyone else in the same way. This is why conspiracy people have so much fun. Making the board is fun. Oh, Pierre, our merry feasting crank. Alright, we're caught up. We have the board. We've got the board. Does it look good on camera? Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, the sizing for that is perfect. Awesome. Okay. All right. So, yeah, we've got Bolkonskis down here. We've only met 2 of them, Andrew and Lise. They're happily married. We've got Pierre up here. Spoiler, I haven't gotten to this yet, but Pierre and Andrew are besties. They are really good friends. They like each other a lot. We have Anna Mikhailovna down here. She just entered the scene. We'll get into her in a second. I've labeled her as kooky and a schemer, which we'll get into later. And then down here we have the Karagins. We've got Vasili, who's the head of the family, and we've met 2 of his children, Helene, who is hot and a hedonist, and Hippolyte, who is awkward, not in a fun way. Anna Pavlovna is she shows up when the Karagins do sometimes, but she's not actually part of the family. Awesome. We'll be updating this board as we go. We'll be updating this board for the next 17 videos, baby! But for now, I'll put this away. I should drink more water, which might be what I just drank, but just in case, I'm going to drink even more water from this. Anyways, editing-wise, I'm hoping I can make that bearable. That took me like 20 minutes just now. So, now we're going to get back to the fucking book. The book, War and Peace. Vasili and Helene are trying to leave the party, but before they do, Anna Mikhailovna shows up. I'm going to pull up the visual again right away. Anna Mikhailovna shows up right away and goes, "Hey, Vasili, remember how my family helped you get your first big job? Wouldn't it be awesome if you helped my son Boris get a lovely position as like a what does she want?" She basically wants Prince Vasili to go talk to the emperor and just be like, "Hey, my son Boris Drubetskoy would be great in whatever cool role you have for him. It'd be great if he could be an officer of some kind." Prince Vasili doesn't love this idea, but he's willing to like play along with him and be like, "Yeah, I'll talk to the emperor. I'll see what I can do." The conversation goes pretty well, but then Anna Mikhailovna is like, "And it'd be even better if he could have this really cushy job that's like perfect." And Prince Vasili is like, I can't promise anything, I'll see what I can do. And he moves on his way. As he moves away, Tolstoy actually describes like Anna Mikhailovna's like face dropping from this like kooky old woman who just wants the best for her son. And then she locks in, she takes on the Sigma face. And we kind of get this implication that she's very good at playing the kooky old woman, but she's a schemer at heart. She knows exactly what she was doing. Let's dispel with the notion that Anna Mikhailovna didn't know what she was doing. She knows exactly what she was doing. She's very good at saying exactly what she needs to say and pressing all the right buttons to get what she wants out of things. And that's kind of where we leave that. And that's the end of the chapter. I'm already almost done with this, which means I might need to refill. We'll see. Let's play it by ear. All right, so the Vicomte Montmar, I keep forgetting how to pronounce that. He's continuing to talk about how Napoleon kind of sucks. Everyone's listening to him because I believe he is French, so it makes sense that he would have a little more insight on this. But Pierre walks in, and Pierre starts going, hey, Napoleon's not that bad, right? Pierre basically... It's really interesting because Pierre recognizes that Napoleon has been doing some kind of fucked up shit. But... he also argues Napoleon is doing this in the name of liberty and equality and all these ideals about the French Revolution. Napoleon was post-French Revolution. If you know about the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror, Napoleon came in the aftermath of that, basically took over France, kind of running on the same ideals, but also, promising, like, order and, we'll make France the greatest and, all that shit. Pierre's going like, his ideals are in the right place, and sometimes you gotta break a couple of eggs to make an omelet, and that's just kind of how it all works. And everyone is like, did he just say that? You can't just say that. It's fucking Napoleon. You can't stand up for Napoleon. What the fuck are you doing, Pierre? Pierre's essentially making a fool of himself in high society. His intellectual thought, I believe part of his backstory is that he was actually, he went to school in France before France and Russia were like about to go to war. I gotta double check that because timing-wise, that would be around the French Revolution, right? No, French Revolution was 1700s. So actually, yeah, probably in the transition from like French Revolution, everything is chaos, into Napoleon showing up and fucking shit up. I believe Pierre spent time in France, then received his education there, went to university, then came back, and now he has a bunch of these intellectual ideas. He's very like wise, studied individual, but also at this point has like a little bit of an admiration for what France stands for, even if the way they go about getting the things they stand for not the greatest. There's a lot of, mob rule and executions and things like that aren't great, but hey, it's all for liberty and equality, right? Anyways, all of the other people at the party, despite the fact that they're all speaking French, because French is the hoity-toity cool thing to do, they all look at him and go, nah, that ain't it, fam. Pierre's basically getting himself laughed out of the party to the point that Prince Andrew has to step in. I'm going to keep calling him Prince Andrew, and you're going to have to get used to it because that's what this book, that's how it's translated. And I'm talking about a different Prince Andrew from the one that a lot of people in modern day are thinking about when I say those words together, Prince and Andrew together. Prince Andrew Bolkonsky. Prince Andrew Mikhailovich Bolkonsky. Should I go into naming conventions in Russia at this point? I might as well. In Russia, you don't have a first name, a middle name, and a last name. What you have is a first name, a patronymic, right? I want to call it patronymic, but I believe it's patronymic. Patronymic and your last name. First name is your first name. That's the same as it is in a lot of, modern day societies. Last name is your last name. That's your family name, and so where you came from, that's all the same. If a woman marries, they take the last name of the husband, just like how a lot of modern societies work. Not necessarily all the power to you if that's not your thing, but like that often happens. Middle name is where things work differently. You don't have a middle name, you have a patronymic. What your patronymic is what your father's name is, and then the way the patronymic works is there's a little thing at the end just saying, like, essentially identifying this is the patronymic, linguistically. So, Prince Andrew Mikhailovich Bolkonsky's patronymic is Mikhailovich. What that means is son of Nikolai, or Nicholas. In this translation, it's Nicholas, but some translations would say Nikolai. Women work the same way. It's just a different ending to the patronymic. So we will... Anna Pavlovna, you can tell just from her name, Anna Pavlovna, her last name is technically Shearer. That's her family name. So she comes from the Shearer family, but her name being Anna Pavlovna means that her father's name is Pavlov, probably, or Pavlovov, or Pavlov. Pavlov I associate with being a last name, but I believe the implication is that her father's first name is Pavlov. It's a fun little, like, decoder thing you can do when you're reading Russian literature. It's just by looking at a person's middle name, in Russian, their patronymic, you can deduce what their father's first name is, which is actually a fun little... I think that's kind of cool. In the same way that, like, Johnson used to mean you're the son of John, Russian still has that, but now it's your middle name. Russia, modern-day Russia, sucks, and Putin sucks, and I don't like him. Hot take. But there's aspects of Russian culture that I do find very, very interesting. And patronymics are a thing that I think are really interesting. Obviously, it ties into the patriarchy, and there's obviously criticism you could have regarding that. But when you're reading about Russian characters, I do think it's kind of cool and interesting that based on the name alone, you can actually find out things about their family. I think it's interesting from a literature standpoint, even if it is obviously rooted in the patriarchy. Yeah, Russian facts. Yay! That's what everyone was asking for in 2025, right? Oh, boy. Anyways, Pierre is arguing in favor of Napoleon, which is a bad vibe. That's, like, weird. And there's, it's like if someone in America was like, Putin's not that bad. Everyone in the party is like, hey, Pierre, what the fuck are you... The vibe is, what the fuck are you doing? But no one's actually, like, willing to say that out loud. And then Prince Andrew, who, again, from the board, we remember, Andrew is besties with Pierre. They're really good friends. Andrew steps in. He doesn't defend any of the statements necessarily. He's very anti-Napoleon, especially because, again, he's about to, essentially, he knows he's about to go to war with Napoleon. But he steps in and kind of both sides it a little bit and is like, hey, I'm not going to stand by everything Pierre just said, but, like, Pierre's heart is in the right place. Andrew's like, liberty and equality are technically good things, so what Pierre said wasn't necessarily, like, bad and terrible, but, but of course, like, Napoleon is terrible and awful because of all the assassinations he's doing and, the fact that he's taking over the government. It's bad. It's not good. So Andrew kind of diffuses things by, like, not really standing up for and defending Pierre, but at least he rescues Pierre from a very awkward situation because Pierre, doesn't really think before he speaks. That's a very, like, defining character trait of Pierre, is he will say whatever is on his mind, and sometimes he's wrong, but he's very honest and forthright with the thoughts that are currently at the top of his brain. And I do love that about him, even though sometimes he's wrong, such as the idea of, like, hey, Napoleon was, like, kind of had a point. Like, no, he was a conqueror who took advantage of a political situation to take power and conquer other people in a way that was not great. But also, at this point, Napoleon has mostly only been a French problem / French issue. So the idea that Russia is going to war, it's at this point in history, 1805, Book 1, 1805, it kind of makes sense that some Russians might be like, we'll let them figure it out. And Pierre's kind of in that camp of like, yeah, the assassinations aren't great, but maybe Napoleon is just taking charge so that he can settle everything in France and, everything will be okay. And the main opinion in Russia is, nope, that's bad. We need to keep an eye on that. We need to make sure that that problem does not become our problem. And we will do that by making it our problem right now before the problem gets bigger. So Pierre is absolutely in the minority here. That's the end of the chapter. That's not the end of the chapter. Prince Hippolyte, remember, he's not that important of character, but I did put him on the corkboard, so he's important enough to make it to the corkboard. He also kind of like inadvertently helps divert things from Pierre's awkward faux pas, because he starts telling a joke and he can't make it to the punchline without breaking up laughing, and so he just never gets to the punchline. So everyone's like looking at him and paying attention to him because they're all like, oh God, we don't even want to think about what Pierre just said. They're all like, Hippolyte, please save us with a funny joke. And Pierre just can't fucking get to the point. It's so funny. When I get to the punchline, you're all gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh as hard as I'm laughing right now, and it's gonna be so funny. And he just never gets to the punchline. So Hippolyte is awkward and not in the fun way because he can't even make it to the fucking punchline before the chapter ends. Onwards to chapter 6. There's 28 chapters. I need to speed this up. Anna Pavlovna talks with Lise, who is, again, it's probably good to have the visual up. Anna talks with Lise, who is Andrew's wife, who also knows, I haven't put her on the board yet, but Mary Bolkonsky is Andrew's sister, who Anna Pavlovna wants to set up with Vasili's, also not on the board yet, Anatol's son. No, Vasili's son, Anatol. Anna and Vasili want Anatol to marry Mary, and Anna and Lise, they chat for a while, and they're like, we'll see what we can... Lise goes, I'll see what I can do. There's a weird moment where Hippolyte, Vasili's son, flirts with Lise in a weird way. For a while, I was like, is that supposed to be like, is there an affair happening? I reread the section, I've read the rest of the book, and I also looked it up online. And it seems like the consensus is no. Hippolyte was just being weird because Hippolyte kind of sucks. He's just kind of there. Prince Andrew. This might be an indication that there is no affair. Prince Andrew doesn't fucking care. Like Prince Hippolyte is like, here, Lise, let me help you put your coat on. And he does let's count shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Prince Hippolyte talks to a carriage driver and is like, yeah, that's happening for sure. So Hippolyte's just kind of a loser who pretends he's a womanizer, but he's not even very good at it. And then everyone just kind of heads home. Anna Pavlovna's party is done, and so Andrew heads back home to his Bolkonsky estate. Not like the main Bolkonsky estate, we'll get to that later, but back to his little house in St. Petersburg. Pierre also heads there, because he doesn't really have a place to stay currently. That's not true. He stays with Prince Vasili most of the time, but his move after the party is, I'm going to hang with my bestie, I'm going to spend time with Prince Andrew. Pierre's still thinking about Napoleon, how I know the assassinations aren't great, but maybe he's doing a good thing, and Andrew's like, hey, I'm about to fight Napoleon on the front lines. I don't love Napoleon, dude. Also, Andrew's main focus is hey, Pierre, shouldn't you get a job at some point? I'm going to join the army. I know that's not your thing, but you should get some kind of job. So it turns out Pierre has been living with Prince Vasili for the past several months, trying to find some kind of career that really calls to him and speaks to him. And it's just not really working out. Part of it is because Pierre is he's not a hedonist, but he does like getting drunk and partying. He loves just having a good time. And also, I think there's a really important part of Pierre of I labeled him on the board, he's aimless. He is looking for a deeper meaning to his life, and he hasn't found it yet. And that's a big driving aspect of his character. He hasn't really found it yet. But for now, he's going to focus on the things that he knows bring him happiness, which is partying and having a good time. And, he's also an intellectual, so he's I also want to talk with other intellectuals and talk and argue and debate and have a good, fun discussion about politics and morals and all these different things. Pierre hasn't found what his meaning is in life yet, and he's in his late 20s, and he doesn't have a full-time job, and he's trying to find one, hey, I feel attacked. Anyways, there's another fun discussion about wars where I should find it in the actual book because here's the thing: if I look at my laptop, which is down here, that's not a fun camera angle, and you can see my massive schnoz, which I'm really self-conscious about. Don't bring it up. So when I see I've highlighted a quote. That's not helpful because I should find it in the actual book so I can present it in an aesthetically pleasing way. In the middle of the argument of Napoleon, Prince Andrew says, "If no one fought except on his own conviction, there would be no wars," he said. "And that would be splendid," said Pierre. So from that excerpt alone, you can tell Pierre's heart is in the right place. He made some awkward comments about Napoleon at the party, but like he would love it if there was no war and if there was ever any fight, it's because people really truly believe my morals dictate that I must stand up for this. And despite his strange comments about Napoleon, which, as Prince Andrew pointed out, were like not great, Pierre's making like a decent point of like it is worth going to war over actual principles and morals. It is not worth going to war just because someone in charge tells you to. And I love that. He gets off to a rough start because one of his defining character traits is awkward. But Pierre really is a good guy, and I love him. Anyways, that's the end of the chapter. I did down the rest of my cup, but I also went overtime for a couple of things here. So actually, what that actually dictates is it's time for a sip of water, huh? Stay hydrated, kids. Speaking of war, now Lise, Andrew's wife, enters in and basically starts complaining about how the war is terrible. This idea of Russia and France going to war, it's awful because it means people are going to get hurt. And very specifically, Andrew might get hurt because Andrew's volunteering to serve. Again, Andrew's not going to be on like the front lines of every battle, but he's got to be like in the action. He's going to be exposed to the battlefield, and she's really worried about that, and I think that's very justified. In fact, Andrew is petitioning to be the aide-de-camp, the like main assistant to General Kutuzov, who is the commander-in-chief. Now, if you live in America, you know that the commander-in-chief is the president. That's one of the president's roles, as being the commander-in-chief, which means the head of the military. In 1800s Russia, it was different. The commander-in-chief was the head of the military, and that was a separate role from head of the political aspect of Russia. You have the emperor, or empress, but in this novel it's emperor, who is the head of the political state. And then you have the commander-in-chief, who is the head of the military, and the emperor decides who the commander-in-chief is, and he can change his mind at pretty much every time, from what I understand. But for now, it's General Kutuzov, who we're going to get into in detail, but way later on. General Kutuzov is the head of the military, and Andrew is like, I want to work directly under that guy. Lise, on the other hand, is like, hey, what if you didn't work directly for the head of the military, where you might be exposed to the front lines, there might be bullets being shot at your face? What if instead you were the aide-de-camp of Emperor Alexander, the head of the politics? The emperor is not always on the front lines. He sometimes will visit the troops to give them like a big hurrah of like, hey, we're all in this together. But like, he's not exposed to the front lines of the war in the same way that the commander-in-chief would be. Lise is making the point of like, hey, you could still have this really important role and be really important to the war effort if you were the aide-de-camp for the emperor instead of Kutuzov. And Andrew is like, no, the war is really important. The work is mysterious and important. The war is important. I want to work for Kutuzov. That's my vibe. That's what I can do. That's where I'm going to be most useful. That's what I'm gunning for. That's what I'm going to do. And Lise is really upset about this. Lise essentially has like a mini meltdown over this. And not only is she sad that Prince Andrew is leaving, she's also upset that apparently Prince Andrew has been like, hey, you need to move out to the country and just spend time away from everybody. Lisa's like, I'm going to be away from all of my friends, and I'm pregnant. I want everyone around me. You won't be around me. I'm not going to have any support. Why are you doing this? And she also accuses Andrew of treating her differently over the past couple of months. It's not directly said, I don't think, but the implication is ever since she got pregnant, Andrew has been treating her differently and a little bit more coldly, which I get... Every single thing I say about Prince Andrew makes him sound like he's the worst. He's not the worst. He's not always great. He's not always fun to be around. Anyways, in the midst of this wild marital dispute happening, Pierre, understandably, starts feeling super awkward and is like, hey guys, I'm gonna head out. I don't think I need to be here for this. And he starts to get ready to go. Andrew's like, no.
No, you just don't address it.
What's so crazy? Don't walk away.
We're listening.
We're right here.
You keep creeping away like Scooby-Doo.
We're just trying to give space to this moment.
This is important, and you should hash this out together alone, not us.
Lise is gonna leave now, and looks to Lise and is like, I'm gonna leave now, right? It's not like an uncomfortable, like, man demanding woman do something way. But essentially Andrew is like, hey, could you give me some time with my best friend so I can talk with him? And leaves the room. It's not great. Prince Andrew does essentially bully his wife into leaving him alone. Prince Andrew is an interesting, cool character, and the cool parts of his character take some time for the book to get to. He's not super fun and chill. Actually, that's true the entire time. Prince Andrew is not chill. Time for a refill of anything. I happen to be unscrewing a bottle of Fireball. There's no telling what I'm doing with it. There's no telling if I poured out that Fireball and refilled this cup with water in the meantime. No one knows. After Lise leaves, it's just Andrew and Pierre alone, and Andrew goes into it. Look, Andrew kind of sucks in book 1. Andrew goes off on a rant about how terrible marriage is and how it's a ball and chain that makes it so you don't feel free anymore. It's worth noting, he is not saying Lise is a ball and chain. In fact, he makes a very important point that Lise is actually a wonderful woman. She's great. Andrew doesn't have any problems with Lise specifically. It is marriage that, as a concept, that ties you down and makes it so that your dreams will never come true and you're tied down and nothing's ever going to work out for you because you're always having to deal with your marriage or whatever. Not a great, healthy mindset. Again, your boy needs therapy. But it is actually, it's worth noting, he specifically says it's not Lisa's fault. I know I sometimes get a little bit snippy with her, but I'm not like, it's not her. It's not me either. It's the marriage. He needs therapy. He basically is like, yeah, my life is a husk of its former self because I got married. It's not because it was to Lise. It's the fact that I got married at all that was the problem. There's a little bit, Pierre puts up a little bit of a fight of like, but hang on, dude. I kind of want to be married someday. That sounds like it would be great. He doesn't actually, I don't think he actually directly says that, but he keeps like, he goes like, wait a minute, Andrew. In my mind, it would be wonderful if... ... And he never actually says it. But like the implication is like, I would love to find love one day. Hey, Andrew, Lise is kind of a nice person. Maybe you should be happy with the relationship you have instead of being super salty about the fact that you're married at all, dude. Literally, so much of this book is Andrew is depressed and everything would be so much better if he had a therapist. But unfortunately, in 1800s Russia, that wasn't a thing you could do. In the midst of this conversation, there's another fun quote. Pierre is like talking up Andrew and being like, hey man, everything's great. You're awesome, dude. And we get this quote from Tolstoy, even in the best, most friendly and simplest relations of life, praise and commendation are essential, just as grease is necessary to wheels that they may run smoothly. Anyways, Pierre has a little bit of angst about being a bastard son of Prince Bezukov or whatever. And then Prince Andrew is like, hey, those Karagins, I don't love them. They're up to no good. And then this is some new information about Pierre we haven't learned yet. Prince Andrew turns to Pierre and goes like, hey, you should not hang out with the Karagins anymore. That's bad when you do that because they're not great people. He's not talking about Prince Vasili. He's talking about Prince Vasili's children who are bad news. Pierre hears that and goes like, I hear you. That's, you know what? You're right. There was a party that Anatole Karagin was going to pull later tonight. Andrew's like, don't go to that, man. And Pierre goes, Prince Andrew, you're so right. I'm not going to go to that party. I don't have a job. I'm staying at Prince Vasili's for free. And it would be great if I could do something that would really show that I'm growing and maturing as an adult. Andrew, I promise I'm not going to Anatole Karagin's party tonight. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 9. Pierre immediately goes to Anatole Karagin's party. Tolstoy loves doing this, of pointing out when a character goes against something that they've said to do, and they'll make up justifications for it. In this particular case, it's, well, I did already promise Anatole I showed up to the party, so when I promised Andrew I wouldn't, the promise I made first with Anatole, that takes precedence, right? It's morally correct that I hold to the promise I made first versus the promise I made afterwards that contradicted the first promise, right? And this is where me being drunk fits in with the scene at hand. He shows up to the party of Anatole Kuragin, who is, again, Vasili's older or younger son. Again, this is one of the few straight up not plot hole, but plot discrepancies in the book. Anatole is there. He's like charming and fun and super hedonistic. He just wants whatever is fun and happy and brings him the most joy in the moment. That's what he's gonna do. So he sees Pierre show up. He's actually pretty good friends with Pierre. He's like, hey, come on in. Let's get drunk right away. And he goes, come on over here. We are currently taking bets on if my buddy Dolokhov can drink a whole bottle of rum while, like, leaning outside of a window without falling over. If he can do, everyone's placing bets. Is he going to succeed and be fine, or is he going to fail and fall out of this third-story window and fucking die? It's probably second story. He probably would have survived. Dolokhov accomplishes this flawlessly. He drinks the entire bottle of rum, slams it down, comes right back into the room and goes, all right, what up? He also specifically says, like, anyone else want to try? I will give them 100 rubles if they are able to do the same shit I just did. Pierre goes, me! I can do that! I love that! If you're a fan of the musical, you're going to be shocked how much Pierre is like Anatole and Dolokhov. Those two men are my best friends. They're all like one big happy family right now, just drunken fools who are doing a lot of stupid shit. Pierre goes, me, I want to do that. And Anatole goes, no, we got other things to do. Which I actually love, because later in the book, spoiler alert, Anatole is going to be an antagonist of sorts. But he's not like a villain. Even Dolokhov is like, hell yeah, Pierre, go ahead and try to do the challenge. And Anatole is the one to be like, no, Pierre, come on, we got other things to do, come on. Potentially save Pierre's life, especially if you've seen the musical, you probably think of Anatole as a villain. He's incredibly selfish. He's not a good person, but he's not evil. War and Peace is a book of realist fiction, where every character is someone you could really meet in real life. And yes, there are evil people in real life, but most people you meet are not like straight up evil or straight up paragons of virtue. Most of them are people trying to balance their benevolence with their self-interest. And that sliding scale of benevolence to self-interest will vary from person to person. Anatole, the benevolence is much on the short side, self-interest very much on the strong side, but it's not like he has no benevolence. He is friends with Pierre, and he wants Pierre to be safe. I really love that about Tolstoy. It's so easy to make a villain who's just evil, and Tolstoy doesn't do that. Aside from maybe Napoleon, there's no villains in this book. There's a lot of fuckers in this book. There's a lot of people who's like, God damn it, I'm so sick of that guy's shit. But there's no people, even, it's actually funny, Tolstoy is way harsher on real life people than he is on the fictional characters he makes. But everything in Tolstoy is, this person cares more about themselves than other people, but they're still a human being. So anyways, he pulls Pierre off the ledge, and then they go off to do some other shit. There's a young bear called Bruin, which I think just means bear. They just grab the bear and they're like, let's go do some other shit instead of maybe killing ourselves accidentally by jumping out of a window. This is actually important foreshadowing. There's a point where Pierre grabbed Bruin, the bear, and like starts pulling him around with the, I've got a lot of stuffed animals over there. I'll use the seal. Hang on. No, the bear. I have a bear. I'm not really a Packers fan. My grandma was a Packers fan, and this was an heirloom from when she passed away. This is a remembrance of her. So if you hate the Packers, I have this because my grandma had it. But anyways, this is bear. Pierre's able to hold the bear with two hands, and it mentions it's a young bear. Bruin is a young bear, but not a cub. So probably like adolescent bear who has gone through some growth. Pierre's able to grab the bear and like lift it up and be like, "Ooh, we're gonna go have fun in town with the fucking bear." So that's a fun detail about Pierre's character. He's physically strong. He's able to hold up a bear with both hands. That's kind of fun. Sure, we'll leave him there. Good boy. Anyways, that's the end of the chapter. Pierre and Anatole and Dolokhov are all going to go off and do some other shit, which means it's time for more people to be added to the corkboard. So, shit. My method of figuring out characters is going to be a little bit strange here, because I mentioned aces are usually main characters. Here's the thing. Anatole is an important character. I wouldn't say he's a main character. So I am making him the jack of clubs. For Anatole, the two traits I've written down are hedonist, as much of the Kuragins are, but also stupid. That's an important aspect of Anatole. He is not evil, he's stupid. Should I get into casting? I have this thing where when I read books, I try to cast actual actors as certain characters. I have Joe Keery, aka Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. I have him as Anatole. I think that really helps sell the idea of he is not evil. He's just stupid. Who else do I have? Vasili, I had Liam Cunningham. He usually plays good boys. Most people think of him as Davos from Game of Thrones, and he's like the goodest boy in that. Prince Vasili, not a good boy. Not a great person. But I do think Liam Cunningham would eat it in that role. I think he'd be great. For Helene, I have Anya Taylor-Joy. For Anna Mikhalovna, I had Maggie Smith. When I read this book, Maggie Smith was still alive. Rest in peace. I love her as kind of like slightly kooky, but like beneath that there's a veneer, and underneath that veneer is like she knows exactly what she's doing. She's very clever. For Pierre, I can't fucking get Josh Groban out of my head. He plays Pierre in the musical. So I've only ever thought of Josh Groban. He's supposed to be a little bit younger than Josh Groban is. He's certainly not supposed to be fucking Mandy Patinkin age. God, maybe there's a bootleg out there. I want to see Okiryete Onadawan as Pierre. If you don't know the drama, there's drama about casting in that musical when Josh Groban decided to step down. It's beside the point. If there's footage of Okiryete Onadawan as Pierre, please send it to me. Because that sounds so exciting and cool. But my brain, at the moment, can only think of Josh Groban. So it's fucking Josh Groban. Prince Andre, Andrew, Matt Smith. For Lee's, this is weird. I've been watching a lot of Dimension 20, and so I had fucking Becca Scott as Lee's. Hippolyte, I had Henry Melling. That's a random choice. He was Dudley in Harry Potter, and he was the guy in the Old Guard. And that's everyone's. Oh, Anna Pavlovna. Not Phoebe Bridges. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Because fate has decided those are two separate famous people. That's it for now. Wait, no, that's the end of the chapter, so now I need to add more people. So here's the controversial thing. Dolokhov is going to be our ace of clubs. He straight up just shows up more often than Anatole does throughout the entire book. So Dolokhov, he's not like a main character, but he will keep showing up when you least expect it. So Dolokhov. Bold or badass? Which one should I do? I'll say badass. He is a badass. He's not like a great guy, but he's badass. It's not that he seeks pleasure, it's just that he's looking out for himself. So I think I'm a little bit selfish for Dolokhov. And he's still most related to the Kuragins because he's very good friends with Anatole. I have Charlie Cox as Dolokhov. I don't know if that's the best fit, but I do think he'd do a good job because he's really good at being badass. Alright, so anyways, the party ends. The drunken fools go off and do their own thing, and that's the end of that. In the meantime, Anna Mikhailovna, the Joker, here, she's only interested in like her family and her son. She loves her son so much, and she wants to make sure her son can get into a lucrative position to make money for the whole family. She's off to do her own thing. Turns out Boris got the position that she like first initially asked for from Prince Vasili. Boris didn't land the like super cushy job that Anna Mikhailovna was like, if the world was perfect, he would get this job. He got the one that was a little bit lower than that. Anyway, she's off to Moscow because it turns out she's visiting the Rostov family, and that's an important name. Remember the Rostovs. They're important. They're so important. They're the most important family in the book. Spoiler alert, that's the Rostovs go here. We're going to be talking about the Rostovs a lot. Now I think I'll talk about Petersburg versus Moscow. Moscow is, first off, a little bit closer west. So straight up, it's just physically closer to a conflict with France. It's also worth noting that like that's where the Kremlin is. That's where a lot of political action happens. Petersburg is nearby, but it's a little bit further away, and whenever people are hanging out in Petersburg and talking about things, they're usually like a layer removed from things. That war, there's a war going on There's a war going on out there somewhere. Champagne and caviar, we don't need to worry about it. In Moscow, things feel a little bit more real. Anyways, Anna Mikhailovna has headed to Moscow because there's a party happening for Natalie's Day. In Russia, not just Russia, this happens in a lot of places, but in Russia, Names Day is actually a thing that's, I think in modern day, like, about as important as your birthday. In the 1800s, it was more important than your birthday. The person you were named after, usually a saint of some kind, whenever it was that saint's day in the calendar, when there was a little mini holiday, that's when you celebrated things. That was essentially the equivalent of your birthday back then. So for St. Natalie's Day, anyone who is named Natalie or Natalia, that's when you get your big celebration. So Anna Mikhailovna is checking in with her good friend, Countess Natalia Rostova. Natalia Shinshina Rostova. It's important that I include the patronymic because there's multiple Natalia Rostovas in this book. I warned you there would be multiple people with the same name. God, we haven't even gotten to how many Nicholases there are in this book, but we're about to. Anna Mikhailovna shows up to the Rostovs' house. The Rostovs, this is the part where you gotta pay attention. And actually, if I could put one criticism about this book, the book does not tell you which characters are going to be important ahead of time. Almost every single member of the Rostov family is going to be important. In fact, if there was, I mentioned, if you had to hold a gun to my head, Pierre is the main character. If you held a gun to my head and asked me which family is the most important, the Rostovs are absolutely the most important family in the book. We have the Count Ilya Rostov. He's the head of the family. He's the guy in charge. Countess Natalia Rostova, who is almost exclusively referred to as just the Countess, to the point where I got to like 700, 800 pages into the book, and I was like, have we ever learned her actual name? Count Rostov you can tell he's a really decent, good person. He's just like, he wants everyone to be like chill and nice and have a good time, but not in the Prince Vasili way, where he will just like make shit up. He keeps it real. But he's a good person. He's like, I love my family, I love the country, I want what's best for everybody. The Countess Natalia Rostova, she's kind of the same way. The book tells us 12 kids. Most of them didn't make it out of childhood because of the way the 1800s worked. But she's had a lot of kids. She is 45 at this point in the book, but she's already just been through so much that she's kind of like, she's done with it all. It's not just like done with life, but she's done with like dealing with people. I love Countess Rostova, honestly. She's always just fed up with everything, and I respect her for that. Well, we meet their eldest daughter, Vera. We actually don't even get her name in this chapter, but her name is Vera, and she's the fucking best. I love Vera Rostova so much. I mentioned Gary Saul Morrison at the beginning of this video, like, prime brain for knowing everything about Russian literature, and I feel like if you held a gun to his head and asked him, who is Vera? I don't know if he'd be able to answer that question, because Vera Rostova is not a main character. She barely matters to the plot of the book or whatever. She's straight up in my top 3 favorite. I have a top 3 favorite characters. Vera, I think, is number 3. I love her so much. She's so wonderful. Vera Rostova is a prim and proper daughter of the Rostov family. We'll get into why she is the way she is in a couple of minutes, but for now, all you need to know is she keeps it real. I need to check AO3 about Vera Rostova. That's how serious I am about this. I love her so much. Anyways, it is the name day of Countess Natalia. It's also the name day of Countess Natalia's daughter, also named Natalia, but more commonly referred to as Natasha. If you've seen the musical, yes, it's that Natasha. But for now, Anna Mikhailovna has shown up. She's talking with the Count and the Countess, and they're all recounting all the rumors in town. There's a Countess Apraxina who keeps getting brought up. I think she's a real historical figure. I forgot to do a lot of research on her. It keeps being brought up that everyone is talking about Countess Apraxina. Surely there must have been some news story in 1805 that everyone was obsessed with, because she keeps getting brought up as like, when you go to a party, this is the thing you bring up. Another main topic of discussion in this party is Count Bezukov, Count Cyril Bezukov, a rich and ailing count whose name might sound familiar to you. He has many illegitimate children, one of which is one Pierre that we've already met. I need to take a second.
Trust me, son. You don't.
Alright. Good. That was good. Know your limits, kids. Apparently, Count Bezukov has been... he's ailing. He's probably going to not last for too long. And there are rumors about what his will is going to say and who's going to leave his massive, massive fortune to. Count Bezukov is super rich. There's rumors that he might leave it to Pierre, but Pierre has been acting up recently. In fact, back in St. Petersburg, it turns out that one night that we may have seen recently, Pierre went out partying and was a part of a lot of mischief. The main thing that we learn is that apparently Pierre may have been part of a crew that took the Big Bear, Bruin, and played a couple of pranks with it and maybe set the bear after a couple of people just to make fun. And then when the police showed up, the police were like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And in response to that, Pierre may or may not have tied this bear back to back with one of the police officers and thrown them both into the river. My first thought reading that was like, oh, that's fucked up. Are they drowning the bear? And I guess the police officer too, but like the poor bear? No, it turns out the bear is strong enough that it can swim and hold the police officer aloft. So I don't think anyone died in this interaction. Pierre's anti-cop, so, we continue to love him. And everyone is like, yeah, Pierre is way too much of a party boy, and no one knows what's happening with Count Bezukov's fortune now, because why would he ever want to leave all his money to Pierre? The other rumor going around is if the money doesn't go to Pierre, it might also go to Prince Vasili, who has some family ties. So there's a little bit of question about where that money is going to go. Anna Mikhailovna is, entered the party, is here to take part in all this discussion, and she goes, well, I have some family ties to the Bezukovs as well. My dear Boris, my son Boris, Count Bezukov is actually his godfather. So, maybe we might get some money as well. There's some family ties. There's all sorts of people who might get all the Bezukov fortune. There's no way to tell. That's the end of the chapter. I know my limits, so I'm not taking a sip right now. What I am going to do is use the restroom and maybe take a minute to recover. As a lesson to you, hydrate. Okay, so that was the end of the chapter. But now we can update our corkboard, which is good. Because I've drunken too much. What the fuck? Who said that I could do... What the fuck was that? I know the basic thing of, like, if you make certain gestures, certain things will happen. I don't know how to disable that. That just happened against my will. Maybe I'm so drunk that was fake, but I think some balloons just showed up. And even though we're at the point in the book where there's a party happening, I still don't appreciate that happening against my will. We've technically not met Count Cyril Bezukov, but he's now become incredibly relevant because he is the talk of the town. Count Cyril, as a spoiler, has two defining character traits. He is old and rich. Sad spoiler alert for Countess Natalia, the matron of the Rostov family. I already mentioned she was detached. She's also a little bit depressed. Most of the times we check in on her, she's not going to be having a great time. I wouldn't say she's as depressed as Andrew is, but she's not like... Your girl also needs therapy. Most of the characters in the book need therapy. For Count Ilya, who we meet in this chapter, I have kind and thoughtless. He is good at heart, he just doesn't always think things through. That's the main thing you need to remember about Count Ilya. He's not the smartest guy, and sometimes he makes decisions based on his heart rather than his brain. That's also, by the way, why the Rostov family is represented by the hearts, is because almost every decision almost any Rostov makes, any member of this family, they all make their decisions based on their hearts, even when it's not the smartest thing to do. And we also have my bae, my beautiful wife. Our first child of the Count and Countess, we have technically met Vera, who is, according to Tolstoy, too serious and too strict. She's too by the book. And she's, she's a stick in the mud and everything. She's bae. She's lovely. I love her so much. Fuck it, I'll say it. Of all the people I want to marry in this book, Vera's at the top of the list. I love her so much. But we're not technically meant to cheer for her. Her main thing is that she keeps things way too real in this realist fiction book to the point that we're not supposed to be cheering for her. It's mentioned in this chapter that she was raised more strictly than anyone else in the Rostov family, any other children. So as a result, her personality is much different from a lot of her siblings. Anyways, she barely matters in terms of communicating what the plot of this book is, so we'll leave her alone for now. That's the end of the chapter, which means it's time for another sip of water. I know my limits. Alright, we're on to chapter 11. I may have lost track of when some of these chapter breaks were, but we're on chapter 11 according to this edition of the book. At this point, we have a bunch of people. Children aren't people. Alright, I let you clip that so you could gif it if you wanted to. A bunch of children run into the room, and there's a lot of characters introduced with this gaggle of children because they're all running in and they're interrupting the moment. Most of the people present don't really care all that much. Count Ilya is actually like really happy to see everybody, especially his dearest, most favoritist. You really shouldn't have a favorite child, but Count Ilya doesn't care, I guess. His favorite child, Natasha. Countess Natalia's daughter, Natalia Jr., who most commonly goes by Natasha. This is a character that we're going to be focusing a lot on. At this point in the book, she is like 14 or 15, which makes some of the conversations we're about to have a little bit uncomfortable in modern contexts. Tolstoy notes she is right on the edge between girlhood and womanhood. You know, she's right in that transition period. Count Ilya is happy to see her, even though she's running in and interrupting the conversation. She's just like, oh, I love to see my dear Natasha. And that's pretty much the entire chapter. Is just like, hey, here are the kids. We have, obviously, Natasha. As I mentioned, she is a character we're going to focus on. And in fact, she is going to go ahead and be our Ace of Hearts. She is a very important character to the narrative. This is off the cuff, several drinks in, purportedly. But for Natasha, I have her two defining character traits as impulsive and kind. She is a good person. She's a lovely person who really cares about other people. But she's very impulsive. She's ruled by her heart more than her brain. Again, that's kind of the theme of the entire Rostov family, but it's especially true for Natasha, and that's going to be very important for the book moving forward. We also got several other characters who are briefly mentioned. We'll expand upon them shortly, but we have several other members of the Rostov family. We have Nicholas, who is the eldest son. Spoiler alert, Nicholas is one of the characters I would consider another one of the main characters of the book. I could have sworn I had 5 people labeled as the main characters, but now I can only think of 4. I would love if I could make the 4 main characters the 4 aces on the visual thing here, but unfortunately, Natasha and Nicholas are both Rostovs, which means they both need to be from the same suit, the Hearts. So Nicholas here is actually going to end up being the Jack of Hearts. Nicholas's defining character traits are, again, it runs in the family, rather impulsive, but he is also brave. A fun thing here that I didn't even think about. So in terms of casting, I guess I can go into casting here. It's mentioned briefly in the book itself that the Countess has a, and this is the book's words, not mine, and I apologize for using this word that is very outdated and rather offensive. Countess Natalia is described as having an oriental face. So with that in mind, I actually cast a lot of Asian actors in my brain when I was thinking of the Rostov family. So for the Countess, I have Dichen Lachman. I actually did that before I started watching Severance, because Dichen Lachman has been in a lot of stuff, and she's been very good in everything I've seen her in. Paul Sun Hyung Lee, that's who I have as Count Ilya. Natasha, how did I swear this, I don't think this was intentional. For Natasha Rostov, I did cast Natasha Liu Bordizzo. She played Sabine in the Ahsoka live-action show. And she was also in the fucking vampire movie Night Shift. Those are the 2 things I know her from. And then for Nicholas, I have, this is weird, I have Brandon Suhu. And the reason Brandon Suhu is at the top of my mind is because I also cast him in my brain, again, obviously fan casting, as Adeline Colin from Stormlight Archive, which is hilarious because I made the decision to cast that actor as both Adeline and Nicholas before I made the connection that both of these characters are brave, impulsive, kind of heart, dumb of ass, and also, incredibly specifically, both of them really want to duel people. We also meet a couple other members of the Rostov family, and I'm realizing that this cork board is a little too small, but we're going to try our best to make it work. So we meet Sonia in this chapter. Sofia... What is it? Sofia Alexandrovna Rostova. That's her name. We meet Sonia in this chapter. Sonia is not a daughter of the Count and the Countess. She is a cousin of that generation. But her parents, I believe, have both died. So she has essentially been adopted by the family. She's being raised as essentially a sibling of Natasha and Nicholas and Petya, who we'll meet in a minute. But she's technically a cousin rather than a sibling. She's a good person. She's nice. She's kind. And I'm trying to think of what her second character trait should be. And my gut is telling me to say masochist. But I don't think that's quite accurate. I think I might put... And I hate to almost draw equivalence between these two because they're very different things. But rather than masochist, I might put introvert. Those are not equivalent. I'm not trying to say those are equivalent. The thing about Sonia is that she is often having a bad time and she puts up with it. She doesn't enjoy it, which is why I didn't want to put masochist. But she's willing to put up with it. And I think a big part of it is because she's an introvert. She doesn't want to get in anyone's way. She wants to stay back. She's kind of a wallflower. She kind of stays away from all the drama if she can. So I think I'm going to put introvert for her. But there are points where she doesn't feel like she can stay out of the drama. And that's actually one of the reasons why she's actually a really cool character. Is that when she takes a moral stand, it has impact to it. It feels real. And we're going to get to that eventually, but not for a little while. We also have Petya. Piotr. His nickname is Petya. He will almost always be referred to as Petya. He is the youngest son of the Rostov family. And spoiler alert, I don't fucking care about Petya. I'm sorry. Later in the book, he's going to be important, but I don't fucking care about Petya. He's here, I guess. I think I will also put impulsive for Petya. We don't get a ton of vibes about his character at this point in the book, but he's here. So he'll be impulsive. And I'll say young. I'll just say young, because the fact that he is young is legitimately important for his character. This book spans like almost a decade. In fact, technically more than a decade, I think. But him being young is an important aspect of his character, even though he does technically grow older over the course of the book. So Petya is impulsive and young. And we're still not done, because we also meet Boris. We have heard about Boris. This is Anna Mikhailovna's son. He is not a member of the Rostovs, even though he is introduced alongside many of them. He's going to be our other Joker card, because the Drubetskoys I have put as the Jokers, because again, there's only two of them, and they're mostly just kind of doing their own thing. I'm worried I might be spoiling a little too much at the moment, but for Boris I have put people pleaser and social climber, because those are very important aspects of his character. Much like his mother, interested in making sure that he can attain a high status in society. And that is, in fact, his number one priority. He's not, much like Anatole, he's not an evil person, but he is very self-interested. So, we're filling out this board real tightly here. For Boris, I had Ian DeCastiker, just because he should be in more things. Petya, I don't have anybody because I don't care about him. Sonia, I had Jessica Henwick. Lise is sideways. Sideways indicates that you're dead. You're not dead. Yeah, and that should cover everybody we've added so far. So, we can move on with the plot. We're still not even... Chapter-wise, we're not halfway through book one, but I do think timing-wise we're going to speed things up. Anyways, in this next chapter, Count Ilya talks about how Nicholas, his son Nicholas, is planning on heading to war. And he mentions, he's only doing that so he can stick around his old pal Boris, because Nicholas and Boris are pretty good friends. Nicholas kind of takes offense to that. Nicholas says that, I'm going to war because I think it's the right thing to do. I morally stand behind this, that we need to stop Napoleon. It's around this time that he mentions that Russia needs to either conquer or die, which... Thinking about it now, there's parts of Nicholas Rostov's character that haven't aged too well. I promise he's a generally good person, but there's parts of Nicholas that he kind of sucks sometimes. He's Adeline Colin. We love him, but he kind of sucks sometimes. He's just kind of... Sometimes you wish you could just punch him a little bit. Anyways, all of the adults in the room are also talking about how apparently all these little kids, this newer generation... they all have crushes on each other. Natasha, who we just mentioned, has a big crush on Boris, and then Nicholas has a crush on Sonia. Sonia has a crush on Nicholas, and that's so wonderful and awesome. And if you are keeping track, you might remember that Nicholas and Sonia are cousins. So, it's 1800s, and that's a thing that can happen sometimes. I don't know exactly what the vibe is, but there are a couple points in the novel where people do point out that, maybe don't marry your cousin. Maybe that's not great. The implication is the adults look at that and go oh, silly youthful love. They'll grow out of it one day. Some of the guests start to leave, and we do get a really fun comment from the Countess saying, I thought they would never leave. It's the implication is they're still in the room when she says that, and I love that. I love her. Next up, we're going to be checking in with those kids. That's a chapter break, so I should take a sip real quick. But we're going to be checking in with those younger folks that we just checked in on who ran into the room and then immediately ran out. So they go into the conservatory where I assume there's a bunch of plants. Natasha hides behind some plants and starts gazing in on some things. And she peeks on Nicholas and Sonia, the cousins who are in love. Spots their conversation, and they have a conversation. Sonia's really upset because apparently Nicholas, who is supposed to have a crush on Sonia, has also been hanging out with Julie Kerrigan. What? That a girl who's also at this party tonight? Kerrigan is separate from Kurrigan. It sucks. There's so many names. Not only do some people have the same name, some of them have incredibly similar names. Julie Kerrigan, Carragina, technically, is here at the party. Apparently, Nicholas has been hanging out with her, and Sonia's upset because Sonia was like, but don't you love me? And Nicholas was like, of course I love you, but for social appearances, I need to hang out with Julie a little bit more. Sonia's like, oh, that's so sad, but you're going to marry me one day, right? Your cousin? You love your cousin romantically? Nicholas is like, yeah, of course, yeah, sure. And so they kiss. Tasha, after seeing that, runs up to Boris, who is not related to her in any way, and goes, don't you love me? Don't you have a crush on me? Don't you want to kiss me? And Boris is like, maybe. And Tasha's like, yeah, let's kiss. Let's kiss right now, because that's what people in love do. And she kisses Boris, and Boris is like, cool. Yeah, that was kissing. Kissing's good. I don't think we should get engaged yet or anything. We're a little young for that. Maybe chill out. Natasha's a little bit bummed about that, but is like, yeah, it's okay. I can wait until I'm a little bit older for us to get engaged. But you love me, right? And Boris is like, yeah, I definitely love you. And I don't think we're meant to side with Boris here, but from modern standards and modern context, it's way easier to side with Boris of hey, maybe we don't agree to get married just yet because we're 15. With that in mind, even though she hasn't really been on screen yet, quite yet, I'm going to go ahead and add Julie Kerrigan to the cork board. She's not a main character, but she's important enough that I'm going to give her a card. She's going to be the 5 of diamonds. You might be surprised because you might remember, if you're paying attention, that the diamonds are the Bolkonskis. It will make sense why I'm making her a diamond in a little while. Julie Kerrigan is a socialite, and she is making her way downtown, walking fast. She's just hanging out. She's just kind of she's a little bit in tune with everything going on in high society in Russia. And she just kind of, that's her main role, is kind of being up to date with everything, being with it. and trying to figure out who she should marry. She's not quite sure yet. For now, it seems like she is kind of having the hots for Nicholas Rostov, but we'll see if that remains true. If it does, it's bad news for Sonia. Sonia's great, but it's not great that she loves her cousin so much. That's weird. We don't love that. But aside from that, Sonia's pretty cool. Countess Natalia Rostova says, "Hey, Vera, our bae." Countess Rostova goes, "Hey, could you leave us alone? The adults are trying to talk now. Could you go away?" And Vera, who is raised strictly and is used to this kind of context, goes, "Yes, of course, I will leave." She puts on a smile, and she happily goes away. She goes off to all of her fellow siblings and cousins and is like, the adults are trying to have a party here. Could you just chill? Could you chill for 1 second? Could you stop being super loud and bratty? And obviously, as the older sibling who is trying to shut everyone else down, all the other siblings turn to her and tell her to fuck off. And it's not fair because Vera was raised to be like that. It's not her fault that she turned out this way. And she's just trying to keep this family in good standing. And she's the best. But all the other characters start making fun of her. They call her Madame de Genlis, who was like an author from that period who wrote a lot of morality plays. So the implication is like, you're such a prude, and you're always trying to think that you're better than everyone else, but come on, live a little. That's like the main implication. They're throwing her away whenever they call her that. Anyways, in the meantime, Anna Mikhailovna Drubutskoy, remember, don't forget, she's here. It's this one. It's the Joker who's off doing her own thing, but she's here at the party with the Rostovs. She's here to basically talk about how, oh boy, I hope that I can leave a ton of money for my son, Boris. I love him so much. Boris, off flirting with Natasha right now. I want the best for him, but I have this lawsuit. I'm in the middle of a lawsuit. It's eating up all my funds. I don't know if there's going to be any money left for my poor Boris. So, I'm off to go actually beg Count Bezukov to see if he will leave some money for my family in his will. Remember, Count Bezukov, Pierre's dad, illegitimately, has a ton of money, and he is, health-wise, he's not doing well. She also, along the way, like, kind of complains that the Count is hoarding everything for himself, which is a wild thing to say about someone who's actively dying, but she's a little bit like, wouldn't it be kind if he shared the wealth a little bit? And then she heads off. She uses the Rostov's carriage to do so, which I think is a little bit funny. She mentions that she's, like, not doing well financially, obviously, but, like, it's a little bit funny that she's like, well, I'm off to go ask for money using your car. And she doesn't really ask, just says, like, I'm gonna go do that real quick. So, yeah, she gets ready to head off. So, Anna Mikhailovna heads off from the Rostovs to go to the Bezukov's house, and she actually takes her son Boris with her. However, who's waiting at the Bezukov house but Prince Vasili? He's also here, because remember, he's also in contention to get a ton of money from the Count's will. So he's here just sending his thoughts and prayers to the Count, and really hoping that the Count is going to decide that Prince Vasili gets money. Prince Vasili wants money. So Anna Mikhailovna shows up and basically says, hey, Prince Vasili, can I go talk to Count Cyril real quick? Prince Vasili starts suspecting that Anna Mikhailovna is actually here to just make some money, just to get in good with Count Cyril to make sure that she's in the will, which Prince Vasili doesn't want, because he also wants to make sure that he's in the will somewhere. So you might see on the character things here, Prince Vasili is a schemer, Anna Mikhailovna also a schemer, and now they're at odds with each other because both of them want a lot of money from Prince Cyril over here. Both of the old people send Boris off to be like, hey, do you want to go check in on Pierre? I've heard he's around. Because Pierre apparently has been... Oh, wait, chapter break. But before we move on from the chapter break, one thing I love is that Anna Mikhailovna, because Boris is Count Cyril's godson, Anna Mikhailovna shows up and starts talking to some of Count Cyril's nieces and goes, I'm here to see my uncle. to the nieces of Count Cyril. It's a really good, like, way of demonstrating how much Anna Mikhailovna is like, I'm going to say whatever I need to say to communicate that I need to get the money that will help my family. Yeah, she's kind of a dick, but I love her. So many of these characters are, like, not great people, but I still love having them around. We also, as I mentioned, meet some of Count Cyril's nieces. They are slightly more biologically related to him officially than Pierre is, but they're not his daughters, so in terms of direct bloodline, they're also not guaranteed to necessarily get any fortune out of this. But he hasn't had any official children. I don't know if he even ever married, so any children he does have would be illegitimate. But his nieces, they're officially Bezukovs. They're part of the family. So we have Catherine, or as she is most commonly referred to, Katish. She's not super important, but she is also a bit of a schemer, and she's a little bit snooty. She definitely believes she deserves the fortune, which is a little bit justified, because the implication is she's been taking care of Count Cyril. I don't know. We actually don't get a ton of insight into Katish. She's not a super important character, but she's important enough that she's going on the corkboard. She's actually going to be the Queen of Spades, because there's not a lot of women in the Bezukov family. There's not a lot of people in the Bezukov family in general, but if we're going to have a queen, we might as well make it Katish. We also briefly have, I'm going to make them Spades 3 and 4 actually. Olga and Sophia are two other sisters of Katish. Rather minor characters. It's kind of the three of them. They're the three Bezukov cousins, but they're part of the gang.
So, God, what? Lise, stop going sideways like you might die at some point. Stop it. Katish and technically Olga and Sophia are less important, but they're also here, the 3 and 4.
Anna Mikhailovna is talking with her and with Prince Vasili. Everyone wants a piece of this will, okay? That's the main thing here. Tolstoy makes sure to inform us that the story about Pierre tying a bear to the back of a cop is absolutely true. He definitely did that when he was out partying with Dolokhov and Anatole. And so he has been fully kicked out of St. Petersburg. He's been sent back to Moscow, which is why he is now staying at his father's estate. His father has, in fact, not asked to see him since he's been staying in the big Bezukov mansion, which Pierre has tried not to take too personally. He is not on good terms with Katish, this person we just added to the board here. And she's been saying, yeah, your father doesn't care about you. You should just stay in the west wing of the house and just never bother anyone about it. The implication is the Katish and her sisters, who are all cousins to Pierre, they've all been essentially poisoning Count Cyril's opinion of Pierre, hoping that he will not be included in the will in any way, and that Katish will get pretty much all the money, a portion of it also going to Prince Vasili. So he's also invested in this idea of let's make sure Pierre is kept out of the will. There's a rumor that maybe Count Cyril really likes Pierre and just has a special place in his heart for him. But hopefully, with all this political maneuvering, we can make sure that Pierre doesn't get a cent of that money. That everybody else, everything goes to the people who deserve it the most, the people who are scheming to make sure that they get money. That's a good sign, right? That means that they're morally in the right. I need to take a second, but know your limits.
Really want it. You step up, you will get beat down. Check.
Because of Katish's machinations and everything, there's a chance the Count Cyril, who is on his deathbed, already sick, might not even know Pierre is like present in the house. There's a chance that's been completely kept secret from him.
Draw all in them, bomb harder and slaughter the common men, conquering all combatants, compliments on my dominant.
I know my limits, and my limit is this. That's what this looks like right now.
Yo, who want it? Knuckles clenched, blood drenched.
You just saw the pendulum swing one way, now it's swinging the other. We're gonna take it a little bit easy for the rest of the video. In my initial vision, it was like, hey, what if we took one sip of alcohol, purportedly, per chapter? And then I didn't do that, and now we're going to actually do that. And we're also going to keep drinking water. So apologies for kind of a reset at this point, but hey, every story has its dips and turns and ups and downs, and I've already got a little of purported alcohol in my system anyways, so it shouldn't be too terrible. Anyways, the two olds sent Boris off to go talk to Pierre, and he comes into Pierre's room, and Pierre is just full-on monologuing to himself, pretending to be Napoleon in court, saying, this is why I'm justified in doing all of these different things. He's having one of those classic, arguments with yourself, except he's also cosplaying as someone else while he's doing it. What follows is like the most awkward conversation I've ever seen in a classical novel, because Boris shows up and he's like, hey, do you remember me? And Pierre goes, of course I remember you. You're this guy, right? Boris goes, I have no idea who that is. That's not who. I'm Boris. My name's Boris. Pierre's like, Boris, I don't know who you are. I was wrong when I said I knew who you were. Boris does not take it well and goes, by the way, I just want to clarify. I know I'm here. My mom's here. We're not here to steal your fortune. Pierre goes, what? Why are people talking about what are you talking about? That's crazy, dude. Boris goes, anyways, my mom wants me to invite you to dinner at the Rostovs, if you're cool with that. Pierre goes, oh, I'd love to get to know you better. We can get to know each other better at the Rostov dinner. That sounds awesome. And they both leave the room and go try to check in with the old people. And Boris is just walking away from this confused. And Pierre, he's confused all the time. But right now he's actually happy that he's apparently made a friend accidentally. The two Drobetskoys head back off to the Rostovs. Pierre has said that he will also go, but he's going to be traveling separately. But they're all headed to the Rostov house. There's a very funny moment here, because again, we know Count Cyril's not going to be lasting long. There's a chance that he's going to die within the next 24 hours or so. And Mikhailovna says something along the lines of like, oh, of course, it's important that, every moment counts, everything matters. Anyways, I'm off to go have dinner with my other rich friends, and maybe I'll be back, we'll see. So that's it for chapter 16, which means I will, I'm taking it a little bit easier than I did last time, but I'm still going to take a sip. Come on, you've seen the title of the video. The fumes are reminding me of last time, and my body's not happy about that. But I'll be all right. I'm taking care of it. Chapter 17 goes by real fast. We check back in with the Rostovs, and we get a very good feel for the vibe in the Rostov household. Because the Countess is very upset that her friend Anna Mikhailovna is hurting for money and is really hoping to get some cash from Count Cyril Bezukov. So she goes to her husband, Count Ilya, and says, dear, could we please set aside some money for my good friend Anna Mikhailovna? And the Count, after they discuss it for a little bit, the Count also goes, you know what, you're so right. I'll do anything for you, my sweet. Here's 700 rubles, which is way more than the Count has asked for. And so Anna Mikhailovna shows up, back up. The Countess gives her 700 rubles. Anna Mikhailovna is so happy. They're embracing. Oh, man, I'm so happy. You're such good friends. No mention of the fact that Anna Mikhailovna is still definitely scheming to get some money from the Bezukov fortune. She is just happy to take 700 rubles from her good friend who she cares about a lot and is definitely not just maintaining this friendship for the money. So that's actually it for chapter 17. Goes by real fast, but it does actually give us a really good insight into the Rostov family. What we're going to be finding out, and just so you have the visual as a reminder for what the Rostovs are all about, it's all these guys. The big thing about the Rostovs is almost all of them are good people. I don't really fucking care about Petya. He's not evil, I just don't care. But pretty much everyone here is like a good person. And in fact, the fact that they're good people leads to them making decisions that are well-intentioned but irresponsible. This chapter is a very, very big indication of that, because the Rostovs are actually doing pretty badly financially. They're still like a noble family. They're gonna be okay, but in terms of debts, in terms of who they owe money to, in terms of income not really matching the expenses, they're not doing great. And 700 rubles, I don't know, I haven't done my economic research on 1800s Russia, but 700 rubles ain't nothing. They can probably afford that. They can probably make do without it. But given the fact that they are financially still trying to make ends meet, it's a sum that is notable enough that tells you a lot of what you need to know about the Rostov family in general, and specifically the two Rostov parents, Count Ilya and Countess Natalia. They're very willing to spend money when their heart is in the right place, even though it means it's going to make their family worse off. I actually kind of like this balance of the pendulum, because when I'm super drunk, I'm probably more entertaining, but when I'm slightly less drunk, I feel like I can, identify the themes of the book better, so it's a good balance. This actually works. This works, I think. I hope it works. Anyways, apparently Anna Mikhailovna is like our point of view for this section of the book, because now that she's back at the Rostov house, we're focusing on the Rostov house. Everyone is waiting for the dragon, the terrible dragon, Maria Dmitrievna Akrasimova. This is a character that we're going to meet shortly, but she has not arrived at the party just yet, and everyone is kind of stressed that she hasn't shown up yet. For now, we get to meet Lieutenant Berg, who I love. He's the worst. I love him. Lieutenant Berg is the romantic interest for Vera, our beloved. We all love her. All of you love her as much as I do, I'm sure. And actually, maybe I should hate Berg, because Berg gets in the way of me and Vera getting together. But I don't think they're officially a couple yet, but, you know, everyone's looking at it and they're like, we know where that's going. Berg, I love him, because he's just kind of there. He's just kind of a guy. And not in like a Tolstoy forgot to develop him way. It is in a Tolstoy intentionally made this just a guy, and that's the point of the character, is that he's not impressive in any way. He doesn't have any character traits that are like incredibly heroic or admirable. He's not a bad guy either. He's just a guy. When we get introduced to him, he's bragging about the fact that because he chose to go into the infantry rather than the cavalry or some other branch of the military, he actually gets a higher salary because there's more vacancies in the infantry than there are in other branches of the military. My assumption when I first read that was because people in the infantry die more often. I don't know if that's meant to be the implication, but that was what I first thought of when I read that. The book doesn't say either way if that's how we're supposed to interpret that. In either case, it does tell you a lot about Berg's character no matter what, because if he is downplaying the fact that infantry die a bunch and he's being like, well, at least I'm getting paid for it, that tells you a lot about how shallow he is. He's really just only in this for the money. Or alternatively, if it's not even about casualty rates and it's just like, haha, look how much money I'm getting because I chose the right branch of the military, that also shows you how shallow he is, because he doesn't care about what he's good at, what he's competent at, what he's qualified for, or even like what's best for the country. He's just choosing what's going to get him the most money. That's all that matters to him. And he sees that as an accomplishment of like, look how smart I was for choosing the most lucrative option instead of caring about anything else with regards to what his job is or his career ends up going into. We also meet Shinshin. This is a cousin of Countess Rostova. He's pretty fun. Every time he shows up, he has a couple of witty comments. He's not a super important character. I don't think I'm even going to put him on the board. But if you hear the name Shinshin, we're talking about this guy. He's a relative of the family. Pierre, as promised, also shows up, and he continues to just be super awkward the entire time. And then finally, Le Terrible Dragon. I think, do they say it in French? Yes, Le Terrible Dragon. Maria Dmitrievna shows up, finally. If you've seen the musical, you know she's a main character in the musical. It's kind of insane she's a main character in the musical because she is relevant to this chapter, maybe the next chapter, and then she's not relevant again until 400 pages later. But she sets a very strong impression. She's just so cool because she's tall and mean, but you get the sense that she's really, like, she knows exactly what she's doing. It's hard to, like, tell you what Maria Dmitrievna's vibes are, aside from the fact that in my brain she's played by Allison Janney. And I think that says a lot about the character on its own. Honestly, I don't even remember if she's officially tall, but, like, she shows up and it's like, this character has to be tall. There's no other way to imagine this character. She is a socialite, a woman who is of high society. She is a very high social standing. Everyone respects her. Everyone kind of fears her a little bit. Everyone pays attention whenever she enters the room. That's the vibe we get from her. The reason she's here at all is because she is Natasha's godmother. There's a really cool detail here that I actually just... Oh, it says she's tall. She's tall. She's tall. She's officially tall. But another detail is that she always speaks in Russian. A lot of members of high society, as I already mentioned, speak in French because that's the fancy hoity-toity thing to do. Tolstoy tells us this, and we are meant to understand that she is a true Russian at heart. She's real, she's legit, we're supposed to like this character, specifically on the fact that she does not speak French, ever. She always speaks Russian. As Pierre continues to be awkward, Maria Dmitrievna roasts her a little bit and makes fun of him, and then she goes, all right, it's dinner time, because when Maria Dmitrievna shows up, she decides when dinner is. Everyone sits down to eat. We get a lot of details about who's sitting next to who. The Count and the Countess seem a little bit stressed about hosting, but they're doing a good job. Everything's going pretty well. Pierre's sitting next to Boris because they're best friends in Pierre's head anyways. Boris probably doesn't really care. Natasha's sitting across from Boris, and is making kind of lovey eyes with him. But also Boris is sitting next to Pierre, so every once in a while Natasha looks over at Pierre and is like still smiling and still happy and joyful. She likes being around Pierre. The two of them seem to get along as well. And Nicholas is sitting next to Julie Karagina, who I believe we've mentioned a little bit, and Sonia is not happy about that because she really wants to bang her cousin. There's also a fun detail about this German tutor who's a guest here, and he keeps asking for wine and he wants the wine, but he also doesn't want anybody to know that it's not that he's like an alcoholic or anything. It's Russian wine, and he wants to try the Russian wine because he wants to learn more about Russian culture, but he's really worried that people are going to judge him. I don't think this matters at all. It was just a fun little detail. Okay, I don't feel that drunk, so what I'm going to do is, I can't show you how much is left in here. I'm going to down the rest of this, and then, because of how last time went, I'm just going to call it there. That's going to be my amount of alcohol, but I'm going to see if I can speed it up so that as this alcohol hits, I will be drunker, which is the point of the video, purportedly. Anyways, it's time for updates to the board. We got a couple here. We're going to add Berg. I honestly might take him off later, but for now we're going to add him. For Berg, I'm writing nothing and barely a person, because that's the vibe you're supposed to get from him. So that's what we have for Berg. He is going to be our 7 of hearts, because he is right next to Vera as our 6 of hearts. And then I am going to add Maria, who, as I mentioned, is not going to be relevant for most of the book, but she rocks, so she definitely gets a spot. Mostly because I'm running out of room on her tag. Even then with the Sharpie, it's hard to read. I had to choose short words for her 2 little descriptions, but for Maria Dmitrievna, I have tall and badass, which again are not like the most detailed ways to describe her character, but I think they're the most efficient ways to describe her character. So that's our... Ow! The thumbtack goes all the way through the back? I shouldn't have to be careful about this. I'm too drunk to have to be careful about this. This is bullshit. There's a couple of other guests at the Rostov family. There's a colonel who's a part of the Russian military. Actually, he's a German, but he's helping out the Russian military right now. And he basically says Russia needs to go to war with France because Napoleon needs to be stopped, and no one else is going to do it. That's kind of the main thesis of why Russia is currently going to war. That's kind of what a lot of the military heads of Russia are saying. It needs to protect itself, and it needs to protect its alliances. There's a lot of alliances with other countries in Eastern Europe that are, obviously because of the way geography is, are currently more at threat of being conquered by Napoleon. In order to stay loyal to its allies, Russia needs to jump to their defense. In the meantime, Petya is goading Natasha and asking what's for dessert, and apparently, like in the middle of the dinner, she screams, "What's for dessert?" and everyone kind of laughs. She's not trying to be a brat about it, but Petya sucks, and that's pretty much the end of the chapter. What the fuck? What the fuck? That happens? Has that been happening the whole time? What else is there? Imagination. No, not that. Is it just the thumbs up? I guess I shouldn't ever do a thumbs up or it's gonna... What the fuck? How do I turn that off? I don't know. Anyways, the dinner ends and everybody goes off to their own little dining rooms, and then Natasha's looking around and she's like, where'd Sonia go? I could have sworn Sonia was just here. So she has to go looking for Sonia, and she finds Sonia, and Sonia is crying. Why is she crying? Because she wants to fucking bang her cousin, and she needs to chill about that, but she won't give it up. That's not the only reason, but that's like one of the main reasons. She's sad because Nicholas is heading off to war. He might die. And that's, even if she didn't want to bang her cousin, that's a legitimate reason to be upset. That's fine. The second reason she's upset is because Vera, who, as we all know, always keeps it real, straight up came up to Sonia at some point, apparently, and said, hey, you shouldn't marry your cousin. We love Vera. She keeps it real. Natasha, and I shit you not, Natasha's way of cheering Sonia up is, hey, Sonia, we are rich and noble. It's totally okay for us to marry our cousins. Vera doesn't know what she's talking about. And Sonia goes... You're right, Natasha. Thanks for cheering me up. And then they go off and have a good time for the rest of the party. Specifically, they go back to where people are gathering up again, and they do a couple of songs, because Natasha and Sonia are both very good at singing, as you know if you've seen the musical. It's actually, like, their characters aren't canonically good at singing in the musical. It's just that they're in a musical. They are canonically good at singing in the book, which makes the musical funny. It's like in Phantom of the Opera, where it's like, Christine is a really good singer, and the rest of us suck at singing, even though because we're in a musical, we do need to be fairly good at singing, so that doesn't really, you just have to trust us that Christine is better than the rest of us, even though, to an untrained ear, everyone in this musical is equally good at singing. Natasha has a fun dance with Pierre, and everyone goes, oh, this is so good at dancing. Pierre's not good at dancing. What am I talking about? But Natasha's good at dancing, and everyone thinks it's cute. And then the Count Ilya, shows up and just goes, hey, let's do an American dance. I forget what the name of it is. Apparently, he just blows everyone away with how good he dances. He actually dances with Maria Dmitrievna. Oh, she's slightly off screen. Hang on. Maria Dmitrievna. They dance together and just blow everyone away with their dance. And as the dance concludes, Count Ilya looks at the camera and goes, that's how we used to do it in my day. Because another theme about the book is the older generation making room for the new, and sometimes its hesitance to do so. Daniel Cooper, that's the name of the dance, which I tried to look up and I couldn't find specifically. But it is listed as being somewhat resembling those of a merry peasant dance. And it was, sorry, I should read the whole sentence. As soon as the provocatively gay strains of Daniel Cooper, somewhat resembling those of a merry peasant dance, began to sound. I know what gay used to mean, but provocatively gay? Are we sure Count Ilya was only dancing with Maria? So that's the end of our chapter. Everyone's having a good time. Having a good time. Count Bezukov had a stroke. He's about to die. Straight up, I think the choice of the chapter break is meant to be a very big sense of emotional whiplash. I think that was intentional on Tolstoy's part, because we have this incredibly fun, happy scene of everyone dancing, and then it just goes, as people were dancing in the Rostov ballroom, Count Bezukov had a sixth stroke, and his doctors determined that he would likely die that night. It's a very fun contrast. I love it. There's a bunch of different final preparations that get made. The governor general, military governor, comes in. He pays his respects because, again, Count Bezukov is another member of the previous generation. He's one of that old guard of people who served very highly in the military, very highly regarded in Russia. And he is one of the last kind of survivors of that generation. So he's getting paid a lot of respects from a lot of different important people. There's also a note of some funeral home people being parked outside the house like vultures, which I thought was a really interesting kind of bit of social commentary in the middle of that. And then Prince Vasili shows up, and he wants to have a chat with Catherine, one of Pierre's cousins. Remember, Prince Vasili is a schemer, and he's going to do some scheming right now. He wants to talk with Catherine, and he basically says, hey, I have heard a couple of rumors about Count Cyril Bezukov and what's going on with him on his deathbed. Specifically, he has heard that Count Bezukov has recently made a new draft of his will, in which everything gets left to Pierre. That would be, uncouth and unheard of and probably not really allowed, unless Count Bezukov also had written a letter to the Emperor asking for Pierre to be legitimized and made an official Bezukov, an official member of the Bezukov family. And apparently that letter has also been drafted, and if it were to get delivered, it would certainly be fulfilled, which would let Pierre take over the entire Bezukov fortune, which is bad news for Prince Vasili. It is also bad news for Catherine. At first, Catherine shrugs this off, because she's like, that will would be invalid on account of the whole, bastard son thing. There's no way that that letter also got written. This isn't a big deal. And then she starts to get angry as the conversation continues, and is like, hang on, so you were only ever in this for the money, weren't you, Prince Vasili? And Prince Vasili was like, I'm just trying to help and also get some money. So Catherine gets a little bit angry at Prince Vasili because she's like, oh, you never actually cared about my father. But also Catherine, who's a little bit shallow, is like, I also really want the money. She starts also getting angry at Anna Mikhailovna because we know she has recently paid a visit to Count Cyril and basically says, I think Anna Mikhailovna has been talking with Count Cyril and turning him against the rest of us. So I think this is all her fault. And in the midst of this rage, even though she's not happy to be in league with Prince Vasili, they both want this new version of the will to not take hold because otherwise they don't get any money. So she basically, in the middle of this rage, tells Prince Vasili, this is where the will is. He keeps it underneath his pillow. If we can find that most recent version of the will and take it without anyone noticing, maybe, in a comedic fashion, we suggest it blowing away in the wind.
I'm kidding, of course.
No, sure, you're
you're speculating in a comic mode. Yeah, in a humorous vein.
That's the end of that chapter. So in the next chapter, who could it be? Pierre and Anna Mikhailovna both showing up to pay their final respects to Pierre's father, Count Cyril, knowing that he will likely not live through the night. Pierre feels a little bit awkward because he's barely gotten to spend any time with his father since he's come back to Moscow, and he doesn't know if his father really cares about him all that much. Anna Mikhailovna, she's a schemer for sure, but to her credit, she does kind of guide Pierre through the motions and be like, hey, it is your father dying, so we should go through all of these things, and you should, get to spend your final moments with him, say goodbye, all these things. She actually, does a very decent job of making sure that he gets the closure he needs from all this. That being said, he's so awkward, it's not clear if he actually needs the closure that much, but it's still, a nice, decent human thing for Anna Mikhailovna to do in the midst of a little bit of scheming. Because with regards to these schemes, in case it's not clear, Anna Mikhailovna, based on her previous conversations with Prince Vasili, has decided to give up on trying to appeal to Prince Vasili. She's now putting all of her chips on Pierre. She knows there's not a high chance she's going to get into the will officially either way, but her options are try to scheme with Prince Vasili, another schemer who doesn't like her very much, or try to become friends with Pierre, who has no idea what the fuck is going on. There's actually a really funny, intersecting of storylines thing of, well, Anna Mikhailovna and Pierre are headed off to go see the father. They pass by the room where Vasili and Catherine are both plotting on how to kick Pierre out of the will, and they both see Pierre walk by, and they, shut the door really quick. It's a really fun cinematic scene. There's this whole, early seasons King's Landing Game of Thrones plot of who will be able to make sure that the paperwork goes through to see who gets the money and who gets control of everything happening here. And Pierre is right in the center of it, and he has no fucking clue that any of this is happening. He's so oblivious to everything. He does pick up on the fact that a lot of these servants in the household are all of a sudden paying him a lot more respect and being a lot more attentive to him. Almost as if they realize he's very likely going to become their new head of the household very soon. But he's still not quite, getting exactly how or why all of this is fitting together. That's the end of that chapter. So now we're on chapter 23, where everyone kind of gathers into the Count's room where he is staying and residing. A priest is there to deliver the last rites. Everyone is there to kind of be present for all of these proceedings and say their final goodbyes. And Pierre is getting ready to say goodbye to his father, and he notices offhandedly that, Prince Vasili and Catherine are hanging out, and they're both going over to the bed, right over to, the pillow. To be clear, the Count is not on the bed right now. He's over, I guess he's on some, death chair currently or something. I don't know why he's had a stroke and that he's not in his bed, but he's somewhere else in the room. Pierre notices Vasili and Catherine are over by the bed, and they both discreetly leave the room, and Pierre's like, not my problem. And then weirdly, that's when everyone decides, oh no, the guy who just had a stroke should probably be in bed. So they all move him from where he currently is over to the bed. I have no idea. I don't know what medical practices were in the 1800s, but it's weird that he wasn't already in the bed. But he wasn't, and they all help him get into the bed. Anna Mikhailovna leads Pierre forward to kind of say his final goodbyes. Pierre feels really awkward. He really doesn't know what to do because he hasn't had a super close relationship with his father, particularly in the last couple of years. But, there's still a connection there, and he's not really sure of what to do. And there's actually this really sweet moment that's very, Russian literature vibes of they flip the Count over because they realize that he's uncomfortable where he currently is. And Pierre has a very sincere moment of realizing, oh, my father can't even move his arm right now. There's a specific detail he focuses on of he can't move his arm. He makes eye contact with his father, who's still, conscious and kind of present. And the father just gives, a weak smile of just, yeah, this is where we're at right now. This is what it is. And it's in that moment that Pierre, really starts to lean in, be present for this. It's a really sweet human moment for a relationship that we have not seen on screen depicted until just now. We really get the feeling of these two really do care about each other. At the very least, Count Cyril really does care about Pierre. And Pierre's a decent enough person, it seems like he does care about his father as well. Count Cyril falls asleep. He has not passed yet, but it seems like he is very much not long for this world. And at that moment, Anna and Pierre both decide to leave the room, and that's the end of our chapter. After a couple of minutes in the drawing room, everyone, relaxing, everyone, we've all said our final goodbyes, we're all ready for Count Cyril to pass, and we'll all be okay. Anna Mikhailovna goes, "Hey, Catherine, what were you doing over by the bed, you bitch?" Anna Mikhailovna just straight up accuses Catherine of stealing the will and trying to get rid of it so that it doesn't get legitimized. So the previous draft of the will, where Catherine and Prince Vasili get to split the money, is the one that goes through. Prince Vasili is there, and he's like, "Hang on, wait, let's chill out, let's calm down. There's a dead person. He's not dead yet, but he's about to die. Maybe we should just calm down, please, maybe." Catherine's not having any of this. She just starts yelling at Anna Mikhailovna, and accusing her of scheming and trying to, turn the family against her and everything. Pierre went off to go get some, hors d'oeuvres or something. He comes back, he has no idea what anyone's talking about. Anna Mikhailovna grabs him by the arm and drags him into the conversation and is like, "Don't you agree that we should have the most recent version of the will? Don't you understand?" And Pierre's like, "I don't know what the fuck any of you guys are talking. I'm so fucking scared right now." They've drawn a lot of attention. Everyone's kind of staring at them. And at one point, Anna Mikhailovna just gets fed up. She tries to grab the will. Catherine tries to hold on to it, but another one of the cousins comes out of the room and is like, "How could you leave me alone with our poor aging uncle?" They're uncles, right? Yeah, I think that Catherine and her sisters are doesn't fucking matter. "You left me alone with the dying count." And as she throws the door open, Catherine drops the will. Anna grabs it. She runs in. Prince Vasili and Catherine both run in to try and stop her. And then, in my opinion, it's a little bit unclear exactly what happens. There's one of two things. Either Anna Mikhailovna grabs the will, is able to put it back under the pillow to basically be like, "Here's the most recent version," because people know this is where he keeps his will. And it's at that point that we realize Count Cyril Bezukov is dead. Or, what I find way funnier, Anna Mikhailovna runs back into the room with the will, shakes Count Bezukov awake and goes, "This is the real will, right?" Count Cyril goes, and then dies. That's kind of the interpretation I got the first time I read it. It's a little bit unclear. In either case, Anna Mikhailovna runs back into the room. Prince Vasili and Catherine try to follow. They all walk out of the room with the news that Count Cyril has officially passed. But the silver lining being Anna Mikhailovna won out. The most recent version of the will is what stays. And now Pierre is no longer just Pierre. He is Count Pierre Bezukov, head of the Bezukov estate. And because Pierre is the best, that barely matters to him, because what matters to him is that after his father passes, he goes back in the room and he spends the entire night by his father's side. A little bit ghoulish by modern standards of spending that much time with a dead body, perhaps, but in 1800s Russia, I imagine it was a very, very touching gesture, and in the context of the book, it is lovely that Pierre, who has had this strange, slightly estranged, but not entirely hateful relationship with his father, in these final moments really does find a feeling of connection. It's really sweet. Anyways, the next morning, Anna Mikhailovna pats herself on the back for a job well done. She takes a moment to take Pierre aside and then goes, "Hey, it's awesome that you have all this money. This barely matters, but I couldn't help but notice that my good son Boris didn't get any money from the will. But I know your father really cared about Boris, so, now that you have all the money, it would be wonderful if, you could, connect a couple of dots here for me." And then she heads off. She starts telling all of her friends that, oh, yes, the Count in his final moments was so respectful and dignified, and Pierre was the best, and Prince Vasili and Catherine fucking sucked. So disrespectful. They were the worst. I sure hope Pierre is able to tell how much work I put into this, because that's the whole reason I did this. So as far as book one is concerned, that is where we leave the Bezukovs, that is where we leave the Rostovs, that is where we leave the Kuragins, Prince Vasili's plans foiled, and the fucking Drubetskoys are apparently the fifth most important family in the book, and we know that's what happens with them as well. There's a strange blank space on this board, and that's this whole corner of the Bolkonskis. So why don't we spend the last couple chapters of book one checking in on them. There is I didn't bother to look up exactly where this was. Bald Hills. I assume it's a suburb of Moscow. It's somewhat nearby, but not in Moscow. It's a little estate in the country where the Bolkonskis live. We have met technically two Bolkonskis. We've met Prince Andrew Bolkonsky, and we've met his wife Lise. They both showed up in the first couple of chapters. Now we got to see how the rest of their household is doing up, and the answer is, first off, we meet old Prince Bolkonsky, who is the patriarch of the household. Again, I feel like actually this is a case where the person I cast in my brain tells you a lot about the vibes of this character. I have Toby Jones playing Prince Bolkonsky in my brain. He's old, he's eccentric, he's a little bit grumpy right now, and that part of his character is only going to get worse. But for now, he's just a little bit grumpy. And he is one of the last members of the Old Guard. He's of the same generation that Prince Bezukov just was. And the fact that Prince Bezukov just passed away is actually like a really interesting thematic tie to the fact that now we're meeting Prince Bolkonsky. He's one of the last remaining members of this generation who stands up for, the last time Russia went to war and stood up for itself. He, thinks he knows how to run things. He's not quite with it with the modern world, but he has his very strong opinions on how things should be run. Specifically, he believes that being educated and active in the world are the two most important things to make sure you are a productive member of humanity as a whole. He also operates on a very precise schedule. He requires everyone else in his household to do the same, and he also is responsible for educating some members of his household, most notably his daughter, Mary Bolkonsky. This is a name we have heard before. Princess Mary is a bachelorette currently, and in chapter 1, all the way back at the beginning, remember when Anna Pavlovna and Prince Vasili were chatting about things? Prince Vasili wants to marry his son, Anatole, who we've also met a little bit, off to Mary Bolkonsky. And in fact, Anna Pavlovna did talk to Lise, Andrew's wife, to see if she could make that happen. But we haven't really heard about that much since that plot got initiated. One of Prince Andrew's defining character traits is that he's depressed, and I have bad news. That runs in the family, because Princess Mary is not doing great. She kind of gets by living with her father, but she's not, having a good time. It's clear that she loves her father very much. She respects him, and he is very important to her. But in terms of, how she feels emotionally, she could be doing better. She also feels a lot of pressure from him. As I mentioned, he's quite cranky, and a lot of times he takes that out on her specifically. We actually meet her as she is finishing up a geometry lesson with him that has not been going well, and now that the lesson is over, she is heading into her room and just taking a moment to herself because the geometry lesson was not pleasant. But she does have a letter from none other than Julie. Is she on the... Hang on, where is she? Julie! I told you there's a reason why we put her as a diamond. It's because she's pen pals with Princess Mary, so that's fun. Julie's letter includes a lot of news, including how Russia is going to war and the reasons why they're going to war. She brings up the marriage plot that we just mentioned from chapter 1. She just goes hey, I heard some people might want you to marry Anatole Kuragin, so that's kind of fun. I'll give you 3 wild guesses which person who just loves to just chatterbox and talk about whatever is on her mind that Julie Karagina might have heard that information from. It was Anna Mikhailovna. I don't know how well you can see the text on the screen, but Anna Mikhailovna spilled all the beans because of course she did. Princess Mary responds to the letter and she writes a couple of things in it, one of which is discussion of marriage of I guess if my father wants me to marry Anatole, I will, but she seems a little bit ambivalent towards it. Again, this is a letter she's writing to a dear friend, so some of this might be a little bit cushioned and not quite her literal thoughts, but her outward response to marrying Anatole is if my father wants me to, then maybe I will. Her father's needs come first is the main thing. She also mentions that her brother Andrew is planning to come back to Bald Hills sometime today, so she's ready for that to happen. She also goes on a long tangent about Christian morals and virtues. Not really scolding Julie for anything, but just being remember to read your Bible and do your prayers. It's more just establishing of hey, this is something that's really important to me. I'm sure it's important to you because it's important to everybody in our modern society, right? Princess Mary is very Christian. That is a very central part of her character, and that is going to affect her mentality going forward in ways that we will explore in the near future. So now we get to add a couple more people to the board. For Prince Nicholas, I think cranky and eccentric are the two that are gonna serve us well for describing Prince Nicholas here. So there's that. And then Mary. Religious, I think I'm gonna put as her number 1. Not only is she religious, but also, she's a little fucked up actually. Anyway, she's gonna be a queen of diamonds, as I'm sure you could have guessed. She is quite the main character. Prince Nicholas was our king as the head of the household. That's usually how I've been using the cards there. And then briefly in this chapter, we actually meet another character who we'll be getting into very briefly, and that is one Amélie Bourrienne. This is a French member of the household. She is, I believe, officially just a maid, but her role in the household is a bit more complex than that. We'll be getting into the details of that later, but for now, she is a maid or attendant in the house. And she's French. Shit, I misspelled it. Roll with it. The whole point is that I'm drunk. What are her character traits? I can't just say she's French. I'll put... This almost feels like a disservice, because I actually think Bourienne is a really fascinating character. But I think in terms of what we are meant to understand from her character, especially at this point in the book, I am going to put ditzy. And fuck it, she's French. That's her second character trait. I feel sexist having this be the two defining character traits for Bourienne, but that's what we're going to go with for now. And that might be all the characters we have to introduce for book one. Prince Andrew arrives with Lise. Sorry, Prince Andrew and Lise both arrive. And in fact... Lise is much more excited to be there. She is excited to see Bourienne. She's excited to see Mary. All three of them are very happy to get along. And Andrew's kind of there. He's just kind of vibing. Mary is happy to see Prince Andrew, but the feelings are still quite bittersweet because she knows Andrew is just visiting for a day or two before he leaves to go to the war. That's way more stressful than just, I'm off to Petersburg to go chat with some people. This is kind of a, stopping at home before heading off into a much more dangerous situation, and Mary is reflective of that and very aware of that for this entire discussion. As the women continue to catch up, Andrew goes off and starts to chat with his father. Prince Nicholas seems a little bit dismissive of the whole war effort. I mentioned before him being a part of that previous generation. That is very much affecting his views here. He sees this war as not being nearly as important as the last one. He sees himself as being like the Elrond of the situation of like, yes, of course, the war that's going on right now is very important, but, it is an echo of the war that I fought back when I was in my prime. It's nothing compared to that. Prince Nicholas doesn't seem to think that Napoleon is too big of a deal. He doesn't really think that this war is that big of a deal in general. But knowing that his son is about to head off for war, he does take it a little bit seriously. I'll have a discussion with you about it. But there's definitely an overtone of like, this war's nothing compared to the shit I got done back in the day. That's the end of that chapter. In the next chapter, everyone's kind of waiting for dinner. Prince Andrew Bolkonsky, he is also a prince, but Andrew, he's overlooking a family tree in the, I don't think it's the dining room specifically, but in one of the rooms of the household. And Mary finds him there as they kind of have a discussion. As it's been noted, Mary takes her father very seriously, and so she's kind of taken aback when Prince Andrew is looking at this family tree and he kind of scoffs at it. He's like, this is what really matters to Dad. It's just, the fact that he comes from an important family and the fact that he's gotten things done. He doesn't like care about real world issues anymore. Kind of makes fun of him a little bit and scoffs at him. And Mary isn't sure how to take this because she's still caught up in the bittersweet feelings of my brother is here for now, but he's about to leave to go to the front lines. And now he's making fun of my dad, who I really respect and care about. She's kind of taken aback by this whole discussion, and she's not really sure how to engage with it. And in the midst of this awkward interaction, both of them head off to dinner, and at that point, Prince Nicholas becomes a lot more mocking of the whole war effort and basically says, like, Napoleon is being clearly blown out of proportion, and also all the current Russian leaders in the military have no idea what they're doing, those youngins. Everything they're doing is so unstrategic, and if I was still in charge, God, this would be we would bulldoze those French. Andrew's clearly annoyed at this because he's about to go into this big war effort and he knows how big of a deal this is. He knows how important it is to take the war seriously, but he doesn't put up too much of a fight. We get the feeling that Prince Andrew is very opinionated, but he doesn't really like getting into fights. So a lot of times he will keep his opinion to himself until he is in company where he feels comfortable sharing, without it turning into a clusterfuck of people arguing with each other. He doesn't want that, even though he does feel very strongly about a lot of these issues. Speaking of clusterfucks, though, it's time for chapter 28, the last chapter of book 1, and there's a lot of shit that happens that tells us a lot about how the Bolkonskys operate, and the answer to that is not well. We have a moment with Prince Andrew in his room alone, and he's kind of reflecting on a lot of the uneasiness that he's feeling. He's going to the war, which obviously is really stressful. He's not sure if it's just that, Is he stressed out that he's leaving his pregnant wife behind? It doesn't feel like that's really it, but, maybe that's part of it. Is he scared of the war? Does he think he's going to die in the war? It's a little bit... He doesn't really know why he feels the way he feels, but he feels very uneasy about all this. Mary walks in, and Andrew's like, all right, put those thoughts out the way. Compartmentalize the shit out of that, because I gotta talk to my sister now, I guess. Mary walks in and gives Andrew an icon, which, for those who are not familiar with the Orthodox Church, icon is just a little symbol, often has a portrait of a saint or of Jesus or of Mary or something of that kind. It's essentially just a little piece of religious iconography. It's a lot of times something that you can prop up on a desk and you do your prayers next to the icon. That's kind of the vibe of what icons generally are, to my understanding. Basically, she gives him essentially a necklace with a religious icon on it. It belonged to their grandfather. She has a lot of importance ascribed to it and says, just please wear this. I don't know if it's going to protect you officially, but it would just make me feel better if you wear it, because, this is really important to me. Prince Andrew brushes her off a little bit. He's not overly rude about it, but we get the feeling Prince Andrew is not very religious. He kind of rolls his eyes a little bit okay, sis, I'll do it. Not really caring too much about the icon, but he is willing to do it because he knows it'll make Mary happy. Prince Andrew continues to try and be hey, our dad kind of sucks, right? And Princess Mary is still not having it. She refuses to speak ill of him because both of them are just so much a part of each other's lives. They're in this kind of codependent relationship. And Princess Mary is not willing to speak poorly of him, except for the slight aspect of she does express, I am really sad because Dad is not religious, and that's a very important part of my life, and it's not an important part of his, and in fact, he makes fun of me for being religious a lot, and yep, that's a bummer. She is willing to say that part out loud, at least. There's also a moment where Mary says, could you please be nicer to your wife? You should probably just be nice to your wife. And Andrew gets quite annoyed at that. And again, I don't want to go to bat for Andrew here because there's parts of this discussion that are uncomfortable and not great. But it's not as simple as he's a misogynist. Prince Andrew's annoyance is at the fact that he's realizing, oh, when I went to go talk to Dad, Lise was complaining to you that I've been mean to her. And so he's a little bit annoyed at that, of just the secrets being shared there. I don't think we're meant to judge Lise for spilling those beans or whatever. She's allowed to talk about how her marriage is going with her close friends. But that's specifically the trigger for Andrew of oh, you guys weren't catching up because you were happy to see each other. The thing you were catching up about is how I'm a bad husband. And he basically sits Mary down for a second and goes, yeah, it's not that I'm a bad husband. And it's not that Lise is a bad wife. We're both, in terms of being married, we both fulfill the role of husband and wife just fine. I just don't know if we love each other. And this thing that seems like a cut and dry, oh, Andrew's a bad husband, suddenly becomes this very deep introspective thing of oh, no, it's so much more complicated and messier than that. It's not that they hate each other. It's not that they're constantly arguing with each other and bickering with each other. It's not really what it is. It's just that they married each other, but they don't maybe love each other. And it seems like Lise is really trying to make it work despite that. Whereas Prince Andrew is more resigned to the fact of this marriage as a whole was a bad idea. It's not that Lise is a bad person. It's not even that I'm a bad person. It's just the marriage was a bad idea in the first place and we shouldn't have gotten married. But now she's pregnant, so it's not like we can't get divorced now. We're stuck. This is how it is. There's aspects of that certainly have not aged well from a modern context, but it is messy in a very interesting way, whereas it very much could have just been an unhappy marriage in the most generic way. I appreciate that it's no, there's layers to this that are actually quite interesting. That discussion wraps up. Andrew goes to talk to his father to say goodbye. On the way, he makes eye contact with Borean, and we get the feeling that he is pissed at Borean. He can't stand her. The more we see of the Bolkonsky household, the more we can, at the very least, guess why Prince Andrew is annoyed with Borean just on sight. At the moment, I don't think we're really meant to understand exactly why that's the case. So we'll get into that later, but Andrew sees Borean, and he's fucking hate that she's here, and then keeps walking. In case you were jumping to conclusions, it's not because she's French. I know almost anyone in life, if you see that they're French, it's okay to go, God, I fucking hate that person's here. I say that as someone descended from the French, but that's not the reason. Anyways, Andrew goes to chat with his father and basically says, hey, just, look after my wife while I'm gone. He actually gives very specific instructions of Lise has actually been having nightmares that the pregnancy will not go well, so when the time's coming up, it seems like within the next couple of days, if you could just send for an extra nurse, make sure we have all hands on deck, make sure everything's being looked after. I actually love that detail too, of like, we just got this discussion of how Andrew is not happy in his marriage and he doesn't really love Lise, but he still cares about her as a human, and when she goes, hey, I'm freaking out about the pregnancy, he hears that and he's like, okay, I'll make sure that we're taking every precaution we can. I think that shows how this is complicated. They're in an unhappy marriage, but they still care about each other as people, and I think that's a really, really fascinating dynamic to explore. At first, Andrew's dad kind of laughs it off and is like, oh, wives, they can be so silly. But after Andrew presses the issue for a second, Prince Nicholas goes, okay, yeah, we'll bring in a second nurse, I'll do it. And then in very rapid succession, Prince Nicholas tells Andrew several things. Here is a letter to Kutuzov, the current commander-in-chief. He's another member of this previous generation. He's quite old. He's pretty old-fashioned. But as of right now, he's still like head of the army. He is still in charge of military operations. Here's a flattering letter to Kutuzov. Deliver this to him. And don't let him keep you in a super low rank. Use this letter as leverage to get you promoted if at any point you want to. 2, if you don't like working under Kutuzov, just send a letter letting me know. I'm sure I can get you moved to somewhere else in the army. 3, I'm probably going to die soon. I'll probably die before you even get back. So here are my memoirs. Here's a bunch of facts about a bunch of the wars that I fought in. So if you come across anyone who's interested in writing my memoirs, you've got it all in one place. So we get the feeling that from that, Prince Nicholas is looking out for his son on like the surface level of like, I want to make sure he's in a good position. He is doing well in his army job, but also a little bit conceited of just like, don't forget, I was the main character, which means I still am a main character. And if I die, tell everyone I was a main character. It's not priority number 1, but it's very high up on the priority list for Prince Nicholas. Prince Andrew goes, hey, speaking of dying soon, I'm going to a war, and I might die, so I just have one request. If I die, could you take care of my baby? I don't want to leave him alone with just Lise. That just I don't feel great about that. I would love if you would be in charge of my son. Now, there's a really weird vibe. I tried to reread this section to see if there was anything that I was missing, and I don't really know if there was. Prince Nicholas's reaction to, hey, could you raise my grandson if I die, is to laugh it off at first, and then very suddenly, he gets really pissed off. And he basically, like, yells Andrew out of the room. I don't know exactly what the vibe is supposed to be, aside from him being cranky and eccentric. Again, his 2 defining character traits. And then maybe it might honestly come back to that idea of, don't you think you're the main character? I'm the main character. There's kind of almost a weird, like, aspect of, like, I'm going to die first, and my death is more important than your death. I might be reading into that, but it's a really strange reaction that even having finished the book, I'm not entirely sure how to parse. And that's kind of one possible interpretation of it. You quit worrying about if you're going to die. There's no time for that because I'm worrying about how I'm going to die. And you need to shut up about your death. That might be kind of the vibe we're supposed to get from that. But in any case, Prince Nicholas just kind of yells Andrew out of the room. Prince Andrew bids a very quick farewell to both his sister and his wife. Just goes, yep, I'm off I go, gets in the carriage, rides off, and then after a couple of minutes, Prince Nicholas comes out of his office, checks to make sure Andrew is gone, and basically says, good riddance, and heads back into his office. Kronsky's not doing well, I told you so. So that is where we leave things for Book 1 of War and Peace. I believe it's one of the longest books, because so much of it is about setting things up and making sure we're introduced to all the characters. But we still have a ways to go. So that will do it for the story. However, there's a couple more things on this board I want to update before we call it quits. Specifically, we only have one little red string on here. So in terms of characters who are directly related and or married, I don't think I'm going to write a specific string connecting those. I'm hoping that that will be fairly self-explanatory. But for the interconnectedness of all these families, I am going to draw a couple of strings here. I'm not going to draw them. I'm going to cut them out of yarn. Why did I say that? Because I'm drunk. Why does Maria Dmitriyevna matter to this story? One, she rocks, and we just love having her around. But more importantly, she is Natasha's godmother. That's the thing that's actually going to come into play later in the story. So we'll go ahead and mark that off. I have to narrow down the relationships we're going to go through in this because conspiracy boards are messy when it's actually like a big web. Natasha and Boris are making lovey-dovey eyes at each other. That's worth a string. We'll say they're crushing on each other. Sonia and Nicholas are crushing on each other, so that barely matters. That being said, Nicholas and Julie also crushing on each other because Nicholas is a playa. So that's one that's definitely worth a stringy. Ow, I just poked myself in the... Why are the thumbtacks so long and why is the board so skinny? Here's a big update. Count Cyril's fucking dead. I'm gonna put him sideways because he died. He's gone. I do think Julie and Mary being pen pals is a good thing to keep track of. And then Pierre, what's your relationship with everybody? You've got some friends? Buds with Boris, and then drinking buds with Anatole and Dolokhov. That feels like the best combo there. Once around Pierre. Pierre's tack is about to come loose because there's too much red string around it, but we'll make it work. Okay, here's what we'll do. This is normal. This is normal and good. We're just going to tape all three of these together in a way that will look normal and good. And no one needs to be the wiser that this is weird, okay? We're all in agreement that this is normal and not weird. When I show it to you, you're going to look at it and go, that looks normal, okay? We're all going to agree on that? If not, you're going down with me. I don't know what that means. Okay, this looks messier than I envisioned in my head. And did I consider getting a bigger corkboard before deciding, no, War and Peace isn't that complicated. I don't need that much space. Maybe so. And yet, I present to you our board of characters at the beginning end. Why did I say beginning? The end of book 1. Beginning of book 2. That's definitely what I meant to say. So in terms of all of our interconnected relationships, we got the Bezukovs. They're all related. These three are cousins with Pierre. Again, for the most part, I don't have strings connecting you if you're in the same family as each other, but that's what's going on there. Bolkonskis, we have Prince Nicholas, who is the father of Mary and Andrew. Andrew is married to Lise. Also, Boryan is around. And Mary is pen pals with Julie, who's been making lovey-dovey eyes with Nicholas, who is siblings with Natasha and Petya and Vera, cousins with Sonia. All of them, except Sonia, are the children of the Countess and Count Ilya. Natasha is goddaughter with Maria Dmitrievna. Natasha also making lovey-dovey eyes with Boris down here, who is now apparently friends with Pierre. I don't know if Boris knows that, but Pierre thinks that they're friends. Pierre is also besties with Prince Andrew, and he's also drinking buds with Anatole and Dolokhov. Dolokhov's not a member of the Kuragin family, but he's part of the crew, kind of. Anatole is siblings with Helene and Hippolyte, who are all children of Prince Vasili, who just got screwed out of a fortune, and all of his scheming was for nothing, which we love, because Prince Vasili kind of sucks. That is book 1 of War and Peace. You know what I should have? A title card is what I should have. I'm gonna have all this empty space like an idiot. What? Was I a film major or not? But yes, that's who we've got. As a reminder of all our big families, we have the Bezukovs, who, truth be told, the rest of the family doesn't really matter all that much. Pierre is now our main Bezukov character. Bolkonskis, they're rich and kind of fucked up. The Drubetskoys, they're schemers and social climbers. The Krogans, they're also schemers and social climbers, but they're kind of like just bad people. They're just all bad people.
Everyone is a bad person. That's our promise to you. Everyone's a fucking scoffbucket.
And then the Rostovs, their heart is always in the right place, even though it ends up getting them into trouble more often than not. And those are the players of War and Peace, and I cannot wait to get back to them later. I don't know how to end this thing. Jenny Nicholson always has like a fun joke to end the video with, and I didn't think of how do you do this, Jenny? You're so good at this. Is this how I die? Ridiculed and laughed at. Listen, I haven't put a lot of thought into fashion over the years, but I'm proud of like a mostly black outfit, but there's also like different textures, so it like reads well on camera. I hope. Give me tips if this isn't working for you. But honestly, I'm realizing now the fact that I'm on a black futon actually probably works against me here. Damn, it's way too late for me to change that, but I was so excited to be like, I look good in all black. But still, the variety of textures I'm pretty proud of for someone who has not put a lot of thought into fashion over the years. So I've got like the black shirt, obviously, the vest, and then now I've got the Sharpie is an even different texture of black. Listen. If you know me personally, you know that I don't put a lot of thought into fashion, and I hope you recognize that this time around I thought about it. I really thought about it, guys. Okay, anyways. We've got... Why am I tearing up? I'm not that invested in fashion.